I almost used cult inside the temple because I just.
So that word cult came to your mind?
Oh yeah, 100%. I'm sitting there like, how did I not think this is a cult? We're doing this. We're doing these signals. I walk out and I'm just sitting there like, whoa, that was not in temple prep. That was not in temple prep. That's the first time that my true self sat there and like, what the hell are you doing here?
I think Mormonism, when you're raised in a really good, loving Mormon home, it is very safe, but then it doesn't prepare you for the real world. And I started seeing the harm when I moved away from home and started going to university.
Right.
And entered the real world, and I wasn't able to make friendships or relationships. I think how it harmed me as a young girl is that it made me naive. I would say I also saw my mission as an erasure of myself.
Yeah.
Because I just wanted to be obedient. Obedient was drilled into us. Exact obedience will get you the blessings. Exact obedience will get you the baptisms. I worked myself to the ground. Physically, mentally, emotionally. And I came home and I didn't even know who I was anymore.
You both hit up against the rigidity of the system on your missions. You both worked very hard. You both gave it your all. You both really, really engaged with that process and walked away feeling like, wow, I totally fit. I was not valued. And
there's nothing wrong with seeking a payoff.
Wanting the validation. When you sacrifice so much.
Am I wrong here to think like, hey, where's my cheese? Yeah, I mean, come on. Like, this is a 2-year mission. Why am I so wrong to seek for this? Because this is what actually started to drive me away from the church, is that how much can I do for you? You're not doing anything back for me. I'm looking at my parents, our clear enemy now. This is no more questioning about them, flimsy or anything. I saw them as the enemy, which is so sad because they're my own parents. My parents were the only people in my life that will try to bring me value. And I never listen to them because they're not going to church.
Yeah.
So I don't value their opinion because they don't have the light.
This is religion at its worst when it divides families.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
What it gives you, what it offers you in the beginning, that is the vehicle that makes us accept the conditioning, which can be so problematic, where the cost all of a sudden becomes much higher than many of us can recognize when we first hop in the vehicle that looks so like it's going to take us there. And I almost feel like, that's how it succeeds.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Mormon Stories podcast, Canadian and Venezuelan edition. I'm John DeLynn. It's March 28th, 2025. I'm here with my partner and co-host, Margie. Hey, Margie.
Hello.
Today, we have a super cool long-form Mormon Stories faith journey. We have with us today Justine Jalaff. How do you pronounce it?
Jalaff.
Oh, my gosh, I totally butchered it. Jalaff.
Yeah.
I should have asked you that first. And it's Spanish pronunciation, so I should have known it. Justine Jalaff, right?
Yes.
And Ben. Hey, Ben.
How's it going, guys? Thank you for having me here.
Yeah, and you're wearing, you're representing the Blue Jays.
Toronto Blue Jays, baby. 2025.
We cover a lot of United States-based Mormon stories, but we have a long tradition on Mormon Stories podcast of covering international Mormon stories as well. And today we're going to be covering a Canadian version of a Mormon story, but also Ben. Ben was born in Venezuela, and he and his family migrated to Canada when he was around 11 or 12. Is that right? Yeah. And but then spent his teenage and adult years as a Mormon in Canada. So we're super excited for today's episode. And you guys had quite a journey coming here. This is a interesting time in the time of the United States for Canadians or Latinos to be visiting the United States. It's a non-trivial journey for you guys. Is that fair to say?
There was a lot of anxiety. Let's just say.
Yes.
So we're extra grateful you would
Yes,
come all this
thank you.
way to our studio. So thank you.
Thank you.
And I have a special place in my heart for Canada because my sister Gina married a Torontonian and raised, did her endowments, took out her endowments in the Toronto Temple and raised her children in Toronto. So it's personal for me as well. Anyway, had to share that. All right. Well, we're going to jump in and we're going to tell both of your Mormon stories. How does that sound?
Sounds good.
All right. Ben, I think, should we start with yours?
Sure.
And then have it merged with Justine's? How does that sound? All right.
sounds
Where
good.
does your Mormon story begin?
My Mormon story begins in Venezuela. Okay. My parents are originally from Colombia, and they migrated to Venezuela seeking a better life. To understand my story, you have to understand my parents a little bit, so it will lead to why they joined the church. When my dad decided to move to Venezuela seeking a better life, my mom was pregnant with their first child.
Was there stuff going on in Colombia?
The guerrilla was very active. But also at the time, in the 80s, Venezuela was very prosperous.
This was pre...
This is pre-Chavez.
Cuba Chavez,
we're talking
right?
about 20 years before Chavez. Venezuela was doing great. It was booming. To be honest, Venezuela had the resources to be a first world country. Politics obviously took a toll on the country, but my dad moved to Venezuela seeking a better life. And my mom was pregnant in Colombia. And that's where the first tragedy strikes. My mom delivers the baby, and 6 days later, the baby dies. The tragedy of the story is that my dad couldn't go back to see his first child and to also bury his first child. That's the first one.
So they weren't together.
No, like my dad had come to Venezuela to carve a path for my mom to come later. And then my first brother, Benjamin, he's supposed to be me, Benjamin the first, and he dies. The second, it was a miscarriage. My parents were walking in the street after work, and in Venezuela, when they're trying to take your money or try to attack you, one guy will be up front of you and the other guy in the back. Anyway, story short, they attacked my mom and pushed her to the ground, and she miscarried the second baby. That was the second one. The third one, they were working at an institute. I think they were cleaning the institute, and they were sleeping over there, and somebody had broken into the place. And my mom panicked and put a blanket on top of her head and failed to see my dad pull out a gun. I guess my dad didn't tell my mom that he had a gun. And he went after the guy and fired a few rounds at the guy. And my mom told that my dad has been shot. And all that distress led to another miscarriage. The fourth one is me. I'm here now. But that is the anxiety-driven parenting.
Yeah.
For just me. I think I told you guys how anxious my parents were for me and Justine to come here. That's their nature. The last was something that I hold dear in my heart. My brother Gabriel is born. And I remember Gabriel being around as a kid. And he dies 24 days after he's born. And the reason why I'm getting emotional is because I remember him. Because when I had my son, Max, my dad held Max, my baby, and he ran to the bathroom because he couldn't hold his tears, because he reminded him of Gabriel. But that's the last tragedy my parents endure. And during that time, they were working at a market with members of the church that owned that market, that they gave my parents some space to work there. So they knew my parents, and they have sent the missionaries to my parents to talk to them. My parents avoided them because they're naturally Catholic. The whole family is Catholic. In Colombia, Venezuela, Catholic is the religion of the country. And my parents avoided the missionaries until one day they couldn't do it anymore. They sat down and the eternal families came up, and my dad was sold. Like, do I get a way to see my children again and to protect my only one? Yes, I'll sign up. My mom was skeptical. She was skeptical from the very beginning because she could not comprehend, okay, you're telling me that we get our children back, but there's something off about it. And she always voiced that displeasure to my dad. My dad was sold, though. He wanted his children back, and that's where Mormonism begins in the Jalaff family.
Yeah.
I have to just reflect. When I went to serve my mission in Guatemala, we used to play a film strip for investigators. And the film strip was Las Familias son eternas.
Sí.
Families are forever. And the film, it was back in the days when you had a little tape recorder and it would go doot, and you would advance the film strip. It was, pre-video.
Right, okay.
And the story was about this family who lost a child, and the child's name was Jaime. And it was really emotionally impactful or manipulative, but there would be the song, Te haré un arco iris,
Yeah.
and it's just all about the church addressing the issue of a child's death as a way to bring people into Mormonism. And I would bet thousands of dollars that the missionaries showed your parents.
I meant to ask you guys that because when I grew up, the missionaries had a way to structure missionary lessons from the beginning. I served a mission. I knew that the structure was important. I don't know how the missionary work was in the 80s when my parents listened to the missionaries, but I've always found it odd that the first thing they talked about was families can be together forever, where I thought, well, the restoration first. And I talked to my dad about it about a month ago, and my dad really recognized that, yeah, they went after it right away.
Yeah, we would go to the door, knock on the door, and say, hi, we're missionaries from the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and we're here to share a message with you about how families can be together forever. I mean, that's literally was our door approach.
I think, too, it's important to recognize, so my parents are converts, too. They were converted in the 70s, but same thing. The thing that was shown to them, the Washington, D.C. temple was opening. They were invited. They got tickets, and they were shown a film about families being... I wonder if it's not like a hook. And in considering your family, it was kind of like all that loss, all 100%. That family loss just became a,
I would join a hurry the same way my dad did. I mean, if somebody's telling me I'm going to see my 3 kids again, why would I say no to that? I'll take that ticket any day, and I will take it again and again.
Yeah.
I don't blame my parents for that.
No.
Because I'm asking, you invited us over, and I needed to connect the dots with my parents because sadly enough, I was a member of the church, and I never once asked them the process of how they got there until I finally sat down, and it was just, whoa.
Yeah. And I think it probably comes by even the church and Joseph Smith, honestly, because I've been doing some research, reading a new biography of Joseph Smith that's coming out, and it turns out that Joseph Smith's grandfather, Asel, was very secular. He did not believe in Christianity. He didn't believe in organized religion. He was an Enlightenment sort of philosopher grandpa, and he brought The Age of Reason by Thomas Paine to Joseph Smith Sr. and Lucy Mack Smith, which is a book that basically said organized religion's bad, Christianity isn't true, it's reason that should guide us, not religion. Revelation's a bad idea. And the Smith family ignored it. Like Lucy and Joseph Smith Sr. ignored it and pursued religion anyway. And I think it's because so many children in the Smith family died. If you read, whether it's Joseph Smith Sr. or Joseph Smith Jr., so many deaths in the family. I think Mormonism was born out of dealing with death trauma and a desire to keep families together in the afterlife. So anyway, I didn't mean to go off on that segment, but I think it's important.
Well, yeah, obviously it's important because I just wanted to find out, because I do know my mom told me, we avoided them. We did not want the missionaries in the home, and that was it, right? Like I told you, I would say yes any minute, but it also led them to be so anxious about me.
Yeah.
They literally, my dad is so protective.
Yeah.
Not just me, but my grandkids as well. Sometimes to a point of it's dangerous sometimes where my dad is just somebody threatens a family member. And And to me, looking at that now, after stepping away, I feel like I get that 100%.
Yeah.
So it's a combination of providing an important service, helping people deal with death, but it could also be viewed as manipulative, depending on the point of view. Anyway, that's a powerful intro. So,
Thank you.
So you mentioned in your outline being exposed, and this is going to be a big segue jump, but we've got a lot to cover today. You mentioned being exposed to pornography as a young teen. Do you want to talk about that? As a Mormon,
Yes,
as a Mormon.
I want to talk about that because there's something important about kids growing up in Venezuela, in the third world country. 10 is young, according to society standards. In Venezuela, oh no. In Venezuela, you have to grow up faster. You have to be part of the solution, okay? When I was about 8 years old, I was walking myself to school in a third world country, 20-minute walk distance. My parents will leave some cash on the table. Gordo, here's some $20, go downstairs and get some arepas, straight to school. Here's the key. I will come home, open the fridge, and make myself food. When I come home, they will come home at 6. But what that sets up is a standard of growing up quicker, okay? When the talk about sex and pornography comes into my life at the age of 10 or 11, it's a prevalent thing amongst youth already, okay? In Venezuela, we have something called piropo. Piropo is a compliment to a girl. I will see a girl, she looks beautiful. Hey, you look good today. You look good. At 10 years old, we did that. Those piropos everywhere. Kids do that. So the talk about sex among children there was prevalent. When I watched that, I felt like I was the first one, but my friends already seen it.
Your pornography.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I remember I came home, after being exposed to it and not thinking much of it, when it started to slip in, okay, because I had done it before my baptism, before the missionaries even arrived in my home. I didn't know my parents were Mormon. I didn't know that because they went inactive. That's something I should mention. They joined the church and they go inactive right away. Why? Because Venezuela doesn't care about the Sabbath. You don't work on Sunday, you don't eat. And that's what my dad told me. Son, I can't go and skip work on Sunday. I got to eat. So they went inactive right away. So I didn't even know they were members of the church until I was 11 when I have Elder Galante and Elder Atkins showed up at my house. I already seen porn, I had a sex education book bought by my own dad to learn about sex already. I had that book, white book, they still have it. So when I came across pornography, I was not in tune with the law of chastity teachings. Then the missionaries come and they teach me those lessons. Okay, so when it comes again, now I have it in my self-consciousness about that. And I go and ask my dad, hey, Dad, we look at some pornography. And my dad is puzzled because he's like, okay, I'm waiting for a reply of like, hey, you should have done that. What are you doing? No, what he told me was, hey, you got to be careful with that because that's a movie. It's stage, okay? So what it's going to do to you is that it's creating the wrong perception of what the real act is, and you might hurt the special girl in the end if you watch that a lot. So be careful. It's normal. Yeah, you're going to come across it. It's normal, but don't think that that's the end at all, okay? The next part is interesting. Well, but the missionaries taught me that if I do that, I have to confess because it's a pretty heavy sin, okay? That's where the puzzle happened. My dad's like, what are you talking about? Well, the missionaries taught me I need to confess to a bishop. No, whoa, hold on. No. No, you already talked to me and that's normal. What's the big deal? Well, they told me that it's a sexual sin, it's next to murder, and my mom is listening, skeptical. I know she's processing. And my dad's like, no, Gordo, don't worry about it. That's fine. It's normal. Just move on. Just remember what I said. Don't make it a habit. My parents believe that their walls in the house are thick, so you cannot hear them murmur.
Mintan.
And I'm hearing them murmuring in the other room. My mom, hey, Pupi, what is this that Gordo said that he's look at pornography, he has to talk to a bishop? Oh, I don't know why the missionary said that. Pupi, I'm telling you since the beginning, something is going on. They're teaching my son these things. Now I gotta make it clear. I'm very uncomfortable. And my dad, no, Moti, tranquila, relax. It's all good. Okay? I already told him he's fine. Yeah, Puppy, please, I don't like this. This is normal. You know, children watch these things. It's very normalized. And that was my first exposure. My dad just literally scientifically explained it to me. Never once mentioned God's watching me in anger.
Yeah.
You know, and obviously that stayed with me because now that I have children, I'm like, how do I teach this as an active member, right?
Yeah.
But yeah.
So before y'all come to Canada, were you ever like super active in your Rama or barrio?
Mormonism in Venezuela was just a church.
Okay.
We will go on Sundays. Our close friends will know we will go to the Mormon church, but they didn't make it a big deal about it. I didn't go to activities. All my friends were not members. I played baseball. You know, I had my friends from the neighborhood. Mormonism wasn't a thing. It was just a church.
Got it.
We went just because we felt good. Like any Catholic would go to a church on Sundays. It wasn't enforced. We never kept the Sabbath day holy.
Yeah.
We never had FAGs or family home meetings. Never went to activities. So no, I was just a Sunday church guy. That's it.
Okay.
So what made your family need to move to Canada?
My dad likes to be 2 steps ahead. Once Hugo Chavez is running for president and said
Around what year is that?
when he started running was 96.
Okay.
When he said the word nationalization, my dad knew, whoa, that's going to screw up my merchandising business. Okay, they start planning, putting things together. Okay, we need to put a plan to flee, just in case we need to do that. Then Chavez becomes president, but my parents' business was prosperous. They didn't feel the need to do that. In 2001, my parents started to feel that Chavez was heading the country to the wrong direction. Then they start selling things. Okay, we're moving. I didn't know we were moving. I'm in the dark about this. What had happened in September, right before September 11, okay, my mom and dad tell me, hey, Gordo, we're making plans to go to Disney World. Okay, so have a bag packed up just in case we need to go at a moment's notice. Okay, September 11 happens. I remember my parents talking about it, like, Poopy, we can travel now. Everything is shut down. I remember that. I'm like, oh, so we're not going to Disney World? And my mom's like, probably not, just relax. During that commotion of the 2-week shutdown of traveling, the house that we had built was the last thing we needed to sell in order for us to finally move. Somebody calls my dad, and thankfully my Uncle Rocco was in the house. Somebody calls my dad at night. Hey, Benjamin, we want to look at your house to potentially buy it. My dad hangs up the phone. He's excited. And my Uncle Rocco is like, wait a minute. Who asked to look at a house at 9 p.m., a house that has no electricity? This sounds off. Let's take my car and scout the situation. And then they go, and there they was. A black van, bunch of guys out with weapons, with guns.
Wow.
They were going to kill my dad. Because my dad had a reputation in Puerto La Cruz. You know, El Turco, meaning he had a lot of money. Okay? He had a lot of money in his car because merchandising business. They go back home and they call my dad right in there. Hey, we know where your wife works. We know who you are, and we know where your kid goes to school. So you better pony up or things are going to happen. My dad hangs up the phone, looks at my Uncle Rocco, and my Uncle Rocco said, hey, don't worry about it. I'll take care of everything. And my mom's like, we're going to Disney. Let's leave. My mom's crying. My cousins are there, and they're also crying because they somewhat know that what's happening.
Yeah.
And I'm packing my bags, and here I go to Disney World. And we leave. When we get to Orlando and we cross the border, we take a taxi to the hotel, and that's when they told me, we're not going to Disney World. We're moving to Canada.
Yeah.
And we're going from here to Buffalo, New York, to a refugee home where we're going to stay and then cross the border. We were in that refugee home for 2 weeks sleeping on the floor with hundreds and hundreds of people trying to cross to Canada. That's when we moved. Like, it was very traumatic.
So y'all sought asylum as refugees.
It was like in a random school.
Yeah.
And we get there. and there is people sleeping on the floors. But here's my dad. He looks at, who are the people that makes the list? Oh, those 3 guys right there. And where do they usually hang out? Oh, they hang out in the basement, in the kitchen area. And how do I get down there to volunteer for cooking? So my dad gets a volunteer cooking thing downstairs, make friends with the guys that make the list to get us to cross the border quicker, because people were there for months. There were people there for 6 months.
Yeah, he's smart.
Yeah. So he makes friends with these guys and starts passing them some cash, like make friends. And when they were making the list, that's when he looked at, hey, Ricardo, look at my family, man, come on. And then Ricardo wrote the family, my family. And he passed that guy more money to get a family that we have met. They'll come later in the story, that family. And they cross the border with us. And that's when we get to Canada. Yeah.
Why Canada and not the United States? Just curious. Not that there's
we have an uncle that living in Welland at the time, Niagara Falls. He's actually was a member. He passed away. But we started talking to him. My dad started talking to him in 96 about potentially moving. So we already had a contact there that will help us cross. We also found out that citizenship in the United States was very, very tough to get. And it cost a lot of money. And we found out that in Canada, if you claim political asylum with good evidence that your lives are in danger, that they will put a case together for you and you can potentially stay in the country. So once we knew that, my dad knew it would be easier to move to Canada than the States.
Yeah.
So that's what happened. Once we crossed the border, we're still not secure in the country. We had to put a case together to go in front of a judge and convince him that, hey, you can't send us back, we'll be killed. So, and because it happened right after 9/11, everything has halted to, we're supposed to hear from them 6 months, and it took 6 years for us to get a citizenship.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. And I can only imagine during that time and before that time, your parents and you have lived a life of survival
Oh, yeah.
for so long.
But see, Margie, they didn't, my parents work like donkeys in Venezuela.
Yeah.
In Venezuela, the education system is not like in Ontario. I'm only speaking in experience in Ontario, that schools in Ontario by area doesn't matter. You have the same curriculum. In Venezuela, you have to pay top money to go to the best schools. I went to Colegio La Señora de la Paz, top school, a lot of money. We weren't rich. I don't even think we were middle class, but my parents are paying this expensive school to give me the best education.
Yeah.
Okay? And that's, for me, they always gave me the best. And I perceived that. Even in situations were so dire. Even when we crossed to Viva la Casa, that's the name of the refugee home, my dad still tried his best to find a solution for everything in that regard.
I love it.
Yeah.
Wow.
Thanks for sharing that.
Thank you.
Yeah, we could do a full day just on that.
Yeah.
Really?
So how did y'all reconnect with the Mormon church once you got to Canada?
My Uncle Ramon, the contact that we had, we go there, and my parents right away connect with my Uncle Ramon, and that's where the members of the church came up. I will tell you this right now. What had happened in Welland when we arrived.
This is Welland
Welland, Ontario.
Okay.
Welland, Ontario is a very small town.
Okay.
About 40,000 people. The church comes into my life in an incredibly positive way. And when I tell you positive, till this day, I will quantify it as the most positive experience I ever had in Mormonism in that little town.
Yeah.
When I arrived there, I have two things going on. My immigrant friends who are offering me a cultural society that makes me feel like I can make it here. They're offering me comfort. And I love these friends, okay? The Casal family, Matias, Juan Carlos, Yanila, Valeria, Moises.
These are Latinos.
Latinos from Argentina. My friend Mauricio from Colombia, Andres. I will mention one more, but I don't think he wants to be mentioned. But this is a great community. Brenda, Pamela. This community offered me a home. I miss Venezuela, but they are protecting me. And I love it. Mi país, I'm proud to be Latino.
Yeah.
It made me feel that way. Then you have the Welland people the Welland War, the young men's program in the Welland War, let me tell you something. Mormonism will thrive, even with truth claims, if people behave like people behave in Welland. That young men's program came into my home. 3 guys, my friend Andrew and Dan and Dave came up. I didn't speak English. They came up in my doorstep and spent a whole day with me just to get to know me. And I felt love from them. It wasn't a trick. It wasn't them trying to get me to church. It's just generally them wanting to bring somebody into their group. They will do that with anyone. Actives, less actives, black, white, gay, lesbian. The Welland War did not have any boundaries for who they brought in that group. So that's where things get messy.
Let me just ask if it's okay. Justine, I could tell you're getting a little bit emotional. Do you mind sharing what you're feeling or giving words to it?
I just know these people because they were my youth group growing up as well. I was in the Niagara Falls ward, which is 15, 20 minutes away from Welland. So in our youth, we had the St. David's ward, which was in Niagara Falls. So we were the St. David's girls. And then we had the Welland boys. So, and we are still friends with these people today. And when I married Ben's always been an only child. And we called these guys his brothers.
Yeah.
They were in his wedding party. They were, one of them was our MC. One of them was his best man, and the rest were in this wedding party. And they were Ben's, like we called them, like they're your brothers.
They replaced my brothers for sure.
Yeah,
That's really special.
They were his
That's really
brothers in the
something.
church.
Yeah.
This is where Mormonism shines. I mean, we just, no matter how we feel about the
community.
church.
The people.
You know how difficult it is to just sit and look at that experience? Because the problem, and this is something I wanted to mention, is that I was given the meal when I should be given the entree of Mormonism. The entree should not be better than the meal. The Welland experience was practically the whole entire meal of Mormonism for me. And once I ate that juicy steak, can't wait to go to the next restaurant. And that's when things just become so complicated, because once I leave that, it's just...
Yeah, and you should talk about the bishop of that ward.
Oh, yeah. I had a conversation with a friend about a month ago, and I was explaining to him, how do I quantify my Mormon journey without maybe using the word tragedy along those lines? I don't want to... And then we had a long conversation.
And we don't want to give the ending away, by the way.
No, I'm not. But I talked to him and I said, man, your dad should have never been a bishop. And he asked me, why are you saying that? He was like the nicest guy on the planet Earth. He literally led with his heart. Till this day, I can sit with him, with that same bishop, and had a conversation with him like he is like a parent to me. And to me, when I see other bishops later, but for him, it's just, he set the bar so incredibly high that I told him, like, he was just such an incredible human to be put in a position of bishopric where you have to just sometimes make tough decisions, and I never once saw it. And it resonated with my parents when they were active. They will always look at that bishop with the eyes of kindness, like he was an excellent man.
Yeah, and the welfare program at that time, like this bishop and his wife, like just took these, because at the time this area had a lot of immigrants, a lot of Latin immigrants coming in.
Yeah.
Even my ward did. But they took Ben's family and they just took them to the grocery store and they said, get whatever you need.
They treated us
just
like
no
gold.
limit.
Wow.
Go get what you need.
Yeah.
And just there was no expectation of them needing to clean the chapel like there is now, or needing to do family history because you're getting help from the church. No, it was just like
This
Take it.
recognition of
Just
basic
take it.
needs.
Yeah.
We're here to help you.
I remember when we went to the bishop and said, hey, we don't need any more welfare help, but we got a job. He thought that, did somebody offended you? Like, what's going on? Like, we could still help. No, we're finally, we can work now and all that. It's just everything that happened in Welland, and I don't want to get too much away because we're going to discuss this because this is crucial to the story. What happens here is I don't have words to explain what happens in Welland, because there's the two groups, but then one singular group that I feel like the theology slips in like a snake and you don't even see it. And that's what happened, that I feel like, how do I communicate this journey of...
What theology? Just let's go there.
Well, when I was in Welland first, okay, my English is very poor, okay? So I'm going to church, but I'm not able to grasp much of it. I'm hanging out with these guys because now I like them. I go to activities now. This is when Mormonism got pushed hard. I pushed the gas hard here, and I'm actively hanging out with them. As my English gets better, because all of them are Canadian, so now I'm exposed to more English-speaking people. My ears are starting to get better, and I'm starting to speak the language. Now I'm starting to understand certain things. Wait a second. They look like they're happy. They got big families. They seem secure. They're welcoming everybody. I feel like I'm lacking that. My parents are working all the time now and also stressed out because they had to put a case together to stay in Canada. So now I'm not seeing my parents very often because they're working a lot.
Yes.
And the Welland guys and their families, again, these are people being good. Take me as one of their own. But then the theology comes in and start telling me that we are of this world, but not of this world. We are peculiar people. The people on the outside don't have the same values as us. The people on the outside are dangerous to your testimony. And when things start happening and my brain is quantifying, that must be true because they got the big families and the success. And now I'm looking at the other group, the immigrant group, and I'm looking at them. Wait a minute. You've seen this place too. Your family's also working. And you guys don't feel like you have a future either because we're all displaced.
Right.
So I'm feeling like the Canadian dream can happen now versus trying to hold on to my culture. Instead of having both balanced well, I'm like starting to go the other way.
I see.
So kind of assimilating in the Canadian culture.
Absolutely.
And judging your native culture as being inferior.
But hold on, John, that's my brain.
Yeah.
That's right.
Because not a single one of my friends from Welland came to me and said, Ben, don't hang out with them.
Right.
No, as a matter of fact, the more the better. Because sometimes the Welland guys would even include my friends from the other countries to do stuff.
Yeah.
But my brain is telling me that maybe if I want to survive in Canada, I have to be Canadian. And this is the way.
Yeah.
So the more my brain starts to understand more, the more I look at the other group as a weakness. And this hurts now because I'm starting to create someone. Ben from Venezuela, the survival kid that walked himself to school, that looked at pornography at 10 but wasn't a big deal, that was part of the solution. Confidence. Remember the piropo thing? I would look at a girl like, hey, I had confidence to talk to girls. Then I go in Mormonism in Welland, and I start to feel like my culture's declining. And now, because I want to be more Canadian, something is happening when I'm losing my superpower abilities of my culture, where I'm starting to feel like, yeah, I want to be Canadian, but my English is still not good enough. All these guys are from here. They seem settled. And I just feel like, yeah, I'm incorporating myself here, but I'm incorporating myself in a very handicapped way.
You didn't just want to be Canadian, you wanted to be Mormon.
And I wanted to be Mormon because now I'm starting to feel like Mormonism gives all those family things that I'm lacking.
Right.
I left my home, my pride, mi familia, John. Okay? Mi familia is important to me. And I started to become more of a Mormon. And I started to look at my parents differently. Because now my mom is the enemy.
Right.
Because she's skeptical
You're
about
always
the church.
skeptical, Mom. You're not letting my dad progress.
You're holding him back.
Yeah. You're holding my dad back, Mom. I'm starting to create that relationship with my mom that does not work. I'm starting to see my dad being influenced by my mom. My dad's membership starts to be stagnant, and now I'm getting stronger.
Yeah.
And as I get stronger, my culture gets weakened,
In
and
your
my
mind.
friends,
In your mind.
my immigrants,
Yeah.
I started to make decisions to push them away.
And your new culture is, I'm a Welland guy.
I'm a Welland guy.
Yeah.
Right. A new
And-
identity.
Yeah.
My new identity becomes I'm part of the Welland guys, which again, it worked wonders for me. But I want to separate that from theology because the theology is is coming in very slowly.
Yeah.
And yeah,
I was going to say one thing that's really interesting about this dynamic once you kind of reach Welland is how for your parents, there's this lack of privilege where they're having to work all the time.
Yep.
And they have the case, 6 years? How long did you say?
yeah, we didn't know.
So they're like fighting for safety, for kind of basic needs safety. Let us belong here in Canada. Let us please be safe, right?
Meeting with the legal aid agents constantly and telling
Yes.
us back and forth, well, your case might get rejected, your case might get taken. Like it was a constant ladder of feelings.
Yes. So it creates this space, though, in as a young boy,
Yep.
where your culture used to be in Venezuela, where your family life used to be in Venezuela.
Yeah.
There's like this space because they're working all the time for the church to come in
Yeah.
and fill that space and fill your values and fill this what ideal would look like
Yeah.
for you.
And-
So it
yeah.
totally makes sense. And it's such a flip from your life in Venezuela,
Yeah.
where it's just interesting to me that it makes total sense where you end up where you are with an identity of like, I'm a Welland guy.
And this is where I don't know if the war malice is appropriate, but that's where I feel like sometimes you have to realize you take such a good group of people and the church weaponizes it in a way where they're not even doing anything wrong.
Yeah.
They're just being human. They're being great friends. They being absolutely lovely people. But when somebody is displaced as I was in Welland, trying to quantify the message of success that the church is giving me, they're giving me a roadmap to be like them. You know? Again, it comes back to my dad pressing the button, like press this button to get your kids back, present. And that's Mormonism. For me, now Mormonism is turning my dad's story into my own. I'm losing my family because they're also displaced, but Mormonism is offering me a new one.
yeah,
And that's where things just become a little difficult.
You keep mentioning theology. Do you want to tell us what theology, or did you already tell us?
Yeah, no, I can mention some. Law of chastity comes up again.
Okay.
But now it comes up again with church theology. We're talking about now I feel like I had commit a sin next to murder because now, because of the Welland guys, we're all pile up with these things with the law of chastity, and we hear it's next to murder. You need to confess. The teachings that my dad gave me all of a sudden disappear, and now I feel like, holy crap, I've been doing this for so long now.
Masturbation.
Yeah, it's been normalized.
Yeah.
Now it's a sin.
Yeah, like the only time my dad got upset at me because of pornography was, hey man, can you just buy magazines? Because you're destroying the laptop. Like, you need to stop
That
downloading
was
these
later
things.
when you were an older teenager.
Yeah, like, please, just do something about this. This is the only time.
Can I answer that question for
Yeah.
you? I think when Ben comes and he enters this Mormon sphere and he enters the youth group, like, what are you taught? You're taught you're the rising generation. You're taught that the Book of Mormon is the word of God and we need to study the Book of Mormon. You're taught that you were a valiant spirit before you came to earth, and that's why you're here in this church today. You're taught that you have standards that you need to stand by, and you need to be a Christ-like example to those outside of your faith. You need to be that light to those around you. And so it's that doctrine, that theology, that for Ben, what he's internalizing is basically, okay, I have all this, And I have the light, I have the Christ-like light, I have the truth. And all these people that I crossed the border with or that I was forming a community with, they don't have it. And that's what that is.
So it's kind of a theology of superiority.
Yeah, it's that superiority complex.
Yeah, because back when I'm learning English, I'm not quantifying Joseph Smith yet. I mean, I was baptized, but I didn't know Joseph Smith was a prophet. Come on, who am I kidding? I'm just taking my parents at their value of giving me a good community. I'm just joining because, well, my parents think it's good, so I'm joining. I still don't know about Joseph Smith that much. I haven't read the Book of Mormon. I'm just looking at face value. It looks like a good product. You know, this doesn't come until much later when I start learning more. But now I'm feeling guilty because now I'm learning that everything that my dad taught me that was normalized is now becoming a sin to me in front of me. So what happens is like I'm around the Welland guys and I feel like I'm the only one doing this, the only one staying, and the only one that is not being truthful to even the group. Like, yeah, I'm doing this, and how do I go about it?
So it's like that false sense of self emerges, that outer self that you show to them of like, I'm just like you.
Yeah.
I'm just like you. But inside, you're having this different experience of knowing, and I do this thing
That you sin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if you knew it about me.
Well, it becomes heavy too because, I mean, these are years and years of normalizing something, and all of a sudden it becomes a sin, right? Like this just happened so quickly.
Flip.
Yeah, like it just, I didn't know I was doing wrong. You know, I got caught off guard. Like, whoa, now do I have to confess now? Like,
Yeah, I would say Welland is where you got those friendships, and that's when you started internalizing Mormon doctrine, because that's when you were fully active in the church.
Yeah, and the conditioning could really, I think, be strong because your parents were working all the time, because they actually, were fighting for your life and their life. It really did allow the perfect situation for that optimal conditioning to kind of happen for you.
well, absolutely.
Yeah.
Does it make sense to talk about Nicholas?
Yeah. Nick, man. Nicolas became my best friend.
Was he LDS?
Not yet.
Okay.
Not yet.
So he was a non-Mormon.
He was a non-Mormon. He's the kid that crossed the border with me and my dad and with my family. Him and his mom.
Okay.
Okay. And we became, I would say this, he saved me at the refugee home because as a kid, I looked at him and we become great friends in this really bad situation.
Yeah.
So when he comes into my life from that struggle and comes to Welland with me, he becomes like a brother to me.
And which country was he from?
Colombia.
Okay.
Colombia. I will hang out with Nick on the daily. I love him. Till this day, if I can get a chance to see him again and tell him, I'm so sorry, brother. I love him. He got me through some tough times. But, the more and more I started to progress with Mormonism, the more I started distancing myself from my immigrant friends. But Nicolas was always strict to my friendship to the point where I don't remember how this happened, but now the missionaries are teaching him the lessons along with his mom. And they trusted my parents. Nicolas and Magdalena trusted my parents. And they were taking the lessons and they ended up being baptized in the church, which I find that confusing because they're very studious people. Both Magdalena and Nicolas, they are studious people. But what had happened is that they joined the church, and I think it was a span of 2-3 weeks when something happens where they did it backwards. They should have studied these things and then join or not join. But what happened is they join and then they start finding things.
Well, do you have any idea what types of things they learned after their baptism?
Yeah. Magdalena went to my parents' house. I remember I came home from school, there was this big fight. And I found Magdalena walking away from the apartment, saying like, they lied to us. And then I go into the house and my dad's like, they found some things about the church about polygamy. And I don't know what they're talking about. My poor dad doesn't even have a clue what polygamy is. Again, this is what happens when you don't learn. But my dad doesn't know. He's defending the church, thinking that, no, there's no such thing as polygamy in the church. And I hear about it from Nick, and we stop talking. And he leaves the church within 2 weeks. And the Welland guys know Nick because he's the one guy that once was there and then disappears. But once I found out what happened, I didn't quantify it either. I didn't know what polygamy was. No one is teaching me anything. That's the very first time I actually heard what that was. And obviously seeing the Welland guys and seeing the product, like, no, Nick is crazy. There's no way we do this here. Look at my friends. Look at their families. But that hurt a lot when I lost his friendship, which will come back to haunt me later because it's one of those things where it sits heavy when you start realizing some things.
Would you say you gave him up as a friend, or he gave you up as a friend, or was it mutual?
It was both.
Mutual. Okay.
It was both. I
think you said his mom told him that they couldn't be with your family.
Yeah, I think it was Magdalena that said that Nicolas shouldn't hang out with us anymore. And
from her perspective, we liked her. You both had joined a cult.
Yeah. And knowing Magdalena, how studious she was, she probably found a lot more than polygamy. Because this is a woman that studied well. Again, when I told you, she did it backwards. She should have just done this before. But knowing her and knowing the information now, I guarantee you she probably came with some heavy things and saw my family as probably were culty.
Yeah. And go ahead, Marie.
I was going to just ask you, it feels like you're having, these two really opposing experiences. In one way, you're having this kind of love fest, high conditioning, belonging group of friends with the Welland kids, right?
Yeah.
And then in the course of that emerging and growing, you're having a real loss of, your history, your culture, people who actually, know something about what it is like to be you in Canada, and a close friend as well. So you're having like the loss of, were you cognizant of that at this point in the story? Like as a young kid, are you aware of loss? Are you feeling the loss of this group of people? Or was the emerging Mormon kind of self really driving hard where you almost didn't even register or you weren't even really conscious of what you were losing?
That's a good question, yeah. The loss of Nick, way heavy on me. The loss of the Casals, Brenda and Pamela, and it was more of validation from the church that, they don't have the same values, okay? For me, when I started distancing from them, I saw it as a valiant thing I was doing. I was making the best decision I could make to obtain what I want, which is security and the Mormon experience, which is the reason why I'm mentioning these people by name, because it's a way of me manning up and realize I hurt them. And they know this. I talked to them about it. They took me back. But this is something that, to answer your question, the person making those decisions wasn't me. It was the Mormon Ben I had created. At this point, Benjamin from Venezuela took a back seat. And Mormon Ben came up, and he started driving the car.
That's right.
And when he started driving the car, he just became a very good driver. And I let him, he took off.
Yeah.
What's so hard, and this is just a reflection, is it's not like I look around today in 2025 and see a bunch of, atheists and agnostics volunteering to like help immigrant families assimilate in the United States and befriending them and supporting them and helping them succeed. Like it was Mormon families that were doing that in your case. So on the one hand, it takes a high demand religion like Mormonism, apparently, to get people to be as loving and as kind and as supportive as those Welland Mormons were to you and your family. That's the good news. Yeah. The bad news is the cost of that is a loss of identity for you, toxic feelings of superiority, a loss of community, and you have to assimilate into what some would say is kind of a cult mindset, a cult theology, a cult ideology, even a cult identity, that's the cost to you.
Yep.
So it's helping you while it's, I think you would say, harming you. And it's such a paradox.
That's a good way to put it, because to me it's hard to understand how can this be bad when it's being so good at the same time. My part of my brain is telling me this is phenomenal.
Yeah.
Like-
You want it to be one thing.
Yeah, are you
want
kidding
it
me?
to-
Like,
yeah.
I'm alone in the country,
Yeah.
and all these friends are coming at me with goodwill, you know?
Yeah.
And you'll see this further on in his story. He holds on to this when he moves to different cities, different wards. When we go to a different province, he holds on to this Welland experience so hard.
Yeah. And
Because that's, for him, that's Mormonism.
And I'll just have to say, just because we're making connections here, and Ben, I don't know if this will even connect with you, but Margie's parents were well educated. Her dad, went to Yale University to get his medical doctor degree. Her mom was a nurse. They were at the Mayo Clinic, and they were as attracted to Mormonism for exactly the same reasons. They weren't immigrants speaking a different language from a developing country. They were relatively highly educated people that felt attracted to the church for the exact same reasons in the 70s.
Yeah.
So it's not just the developing world, that feels the Mormon appeal sometimes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I would say on the surface, Mormonism is very attractive sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah, no,
you
clearly.
When you want to have those family values and
Yeah.
that community and
Yeah.
That's why I
that clean cut.
Yes, and
Look.
it is. It's so much about what it looks like. You know?
it looked phenomenal.
But also what it is. It's not just what it looks like in your life. It was what it did for your family.
Yeah. Like, and again, that's the thing that I was trying to explain to my friend a month ago. It's just like, it's hard to not look positively to that, because it was generally a positive thing that they were helping us that way, and the friendships and all of that. And it's something that I will drive the point, is that Mormonism, even with everything that is going on, could just be this beautiful thing like it was once for me. If it wasn't because of what was coming into my brain at the time, giving me a roadmap that shouldn't have never existed. Because these guys are taking theology the same way I am, but they're not making these decisions.
Yeah.
They're behaving normally, just like normal human beings.
Well, this is their community since birth, and you're just joining it.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, and I think sometimes that what it gives you, what it offers you in the beginning, that sense of community, the relationships you have, the values that you have, that is the vehicle that makes us accept the conditioning, which can be so problematic, where the cost all of a sudden becomes much higher than many of us can recognize when we first hop in the vehicle that looks so like it's going to take us there.
Yeah.
And it's going to take us there in a way that we really appreciate. And I almost feel like, that's how it succeeds.
Well, sorry. I
Yeah.
say life is very uncertain, and life can be very scary, and Mormonism gives you certainty,
Yeah.
and it gives you that. So.
And I'll just say, we'll talk about this at the end, but I'm challenging the idea that if only Mormonism could have all the good without the toxic theology and doctrine. I think it's a toxic, quote, toxic doctrine and theology that makes people as committed as they are to then want to do all the good things. And that's I don't think you can have one without the other. You can't have people who give their full lives dedicated to the church to serve in every way they're told without believing that it's all about the celestial kingdom and becoming God someday and you're better than everybody else. I think that all comes hand in hand, but we'll get there. Should we talk about moving to Toronto? Is that
London?
To London.
London.
Okay, yeah. So London, not London, England, London.
No, London, Ontario.
Okay.
Yeah.
How old are you here when you moved to London?
I was about 17. Yeah, 17.
So you were strong in the Welland youth program.
So the Welland experience was more of a social thing with me learning English. Okay, that's where my English got better, and that's when I started to learn Mormonism a little bit. When I go to London, I'm going with the vision of social, like it was in Welland. So when I go to London,
Your family moved, right?
Yeah.
Why'd they move?
My dad got a job,
Okay.
a much better job there. So what happened was, I feel like I finally built something in Welland. Here we are moving.
Yeah.
But then for me, it's just like, well, if I make something good here, I can make it good in London.
Is it a bigger city?
It's a bigger city. Yeah, we're talking about 200,000 now.
So it's 5 times bigger?
Yeah, a lot bigger than Welland, yeah.
Okay.
So we go to London and we go to church, and there it is. You know, a much bigger group of young men's and young women's program. And within that group, there are cliques. When I came to Welland, these people received me with such happiness. Like, and when I went to London, I just showed up in there and it wasn't special at all. They just introduced me. I sat there. None of the kids couldn't give a crap who I was. They didn't even ask me afterwards, like, hey, where you come from? Nothing. It just felt so odd and weird. And then we kept going and going. And after a month, again, my friend's bishop setting the bar very high with bishopric as well, because my parents also disconnected. Because now the bishopric in London is not the same as the bishopric in Welland. And when my parents decided to stop going, I just felt like, yeah, I'm not finding anything there that could keep me in. That right there is when Ben returns, the other one. He comes back briefly. I had it, John and Margie. I had it.
Mean a non-Mormon identified
the same
Ben.
kid again comes back because my Mormon me couldn't find himself in London anymore.
Right.
And then my other one returns. And he returns because, hey, let me drive now so when you go to high school, I can get you some friends. And I go to high school, a Catholic high school, St. Thomas Aquinas, and I started meeting up all these Colombian guys. And then 2 friends from Argentina, Brenda and Pamela, they end up moving to London. So now I had this comfort from this group I push away, and they're receiving me again. And we create this beautiful community in London, okay? My friend that I met, Ivan, like, hey, let's join the football team. Ivan, we don't play football, man. Like, I don't understand the sport.
So you're talking
In high
American
school.
football.
American football.
Not
soccer. The soccer one, no. And I'm telling him, no, but let's do it so we can become popular and make more friends. Not go in, I don't know what football is. I play 6 seconds and the coach pulled me out because I didn't understand what was going on. But from that experience, the whole school got to know who I was. Oh, Ben from the football team? I became part of the high school experience. Started to become different than it was in Niagara Falls. Now I feel like the high school knows who I am.
Okay.
The vice principal knows who I am either. Like, it was just such a great thing. However, let's go back to my parents' anxiety. Because now I'm hanging out with kids that are drinking and then they're doing the bad things. And my parents' anxiety, I forgot to mention that my parents also taught me that drinking was bad because if you do it irresponsibly, it can lead to irresponsible decisions. Never once told me about the word of wisdom. Told me, hey, don't smoke because that's lead to a lot of cancer, so don't do that. And so I had that perception of the teachings of my parents that now in London, they are seeing that I'm hanging out with all these guys and they're doing that. And their anxiety now kicks in that, oh, they want to protect me. So maybe we should go back to church so that he could start hanging out with these guys again that don't drink and don't smoke so that we can save him during the teenage years. And then maybe later, who cares? That he can figure it out on his own. So we end up going back to church. Didn't work out again. The same thing. It failed again. They didn't give me any validation. And literally a month after that, the same friend from Welland that knocked on my door to welcome me into the Welland group comes to London randomly and knocks on my door and just wanted to say hi and see me. And that's where my brain again flips. Boop. Oh, real friendships with the Welland guys. Straight back to Mormonism. Like, my brain literally just made that decision right there that, oh, these are the friends.
And God sent them to me.
And God sent them to me.
Oh.
What a blessing. But London still is not working for me. So what I end up doing is I go back to Mormonism.
London Mormonism.
Yeah, the ward.
The war. So now my Mormon brain is starting to make stupid decisions again to push all my high school connections out. I'm doing this again. And now, I'm not going to be active in London. I'll be active in Welland. Now I'm going to Welland a lot. I'm traveling a lot to Welland. I'm in Welland maybe twice a month. and I don't go to church. So I'm inactive in London. And I'm in Welland. Like, my membership is so displaced. You wouldn't know where to put me. But as I go back to Welland, my English is better. And now theology is becoming more serious because as I'm approaching 18, what comes after that?
Mission. Yeah.
And there it is. That's the fastball.
And also the porn, masturbation stuff resurfaces.
That it hasn't stopped.
Okay.
I gotta be honest.
It's just steady.
The guilt and shame around it is what I mean.
Well, it stopped in London, 100%. I didn't care. It's just when I start going back to the Mormon me, then again, I'm starting to feel guilty again with those things. And it gets worse and worse because now they're drilling into my age category that we need to prepare for a mission. The miracle of forgiveness comes up.
Spencer W. Kimball's book.
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. That was in Spanish, you know. I don't remember how it got to my house. My dad had it. And I remember I just picked it up and started reading it because somebody had told me that if you have issues with masturbation and pornography, it was a talk. If you have issues with forgiveness and pornography, that book helps. And here I am trying to save myself without telling anybody. Well, I'm not going to confess, but I'm going to help myself. And I read that book and I'm like, how do I quantify that? Like the stuff I read, like, am I going to turn homosexual? I mean, I masturbated a lot, you know? Like,
Just normal teenage amounts.
Normal teenage amounts. And that book is telling me that I have a serious problem. And that book didn't help. It just sent me to anxiety land.
Yeah.
Where it put me at a point where now I went from trying to help myself to hiding. Because I wouldn't say anything.
And sorry, you thought you were the only one.
Oh, yeah.
You thought all your Welland friends weren't doing it.
Yeah, they were all righteous.
Yeah, they were all.
Yeah, well, it comes up later. But yeah, I thought I was alone in this struggle. And I knew that my parents at this point, they were so disconnected from the church, I couldn't really talk to them. Because now they are inactive, okay? And I'm going to Welling a lot. And again, my mom becomes a problem because my mom now is coming up. Gordo, I'm having concerns. You keep going back to Welling. You don't want to hang out with us. You don't want to hang out with our friends. You don't want to hang out with your Latino friends. That's the first time my mom said, it's like you're losing your culture. And I remember as a teenager, I'm always right. No, Mom, because they're the righteous friends. Mom, this is what you wanted. You wanted me to be among righteous people. Why are you now rejecting this? You know, it's because, again, my mom's always being skeptical. And that's when my relationship with my mom started to get really bad. Because now I truly feel she's against me and my choices of truly embracing Mormonism. Because now I'm starting to think, like, I have the truth and you guys are rejecting it. Because now I'm reading the Book of Mormon because I'm getting ready for a mission. You know, and Alma 34 comes up, or I think around Alma 30 to 34 when they talk about if you know the truth, you know, you have to, you know, if you know the truth, you're good. But if you reject it, that's terrible. That's worse.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking about that, like, I wish I was on the other side when I didn't know anything. So I can just be on the safe side and then make this decision later. But at this point, I felt like I know the truth. I cannot reject it. And my parents are rejecting this, and I'm looking at them as like, you're not part of my solution anymore.
Wow,
And
that's really something.
Yeah. Like,
And this is religion at its worst when it divides families.
Yeah.
oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah, it caused this. And again, the beauty of my parents, even though I'm doing all of this, they're still welcoming my friends with open arms.
Yeah.
They're still receiving them. My friends love my parents. They're so lovely to them. They're still supporting me and all. They're driving me to Welland. It's a 2.5-hour drive, and whenever I ask and whenever I throw a tantrum, they will drive me. They will drive me to dances, youth conferences, even when they knew this is turning weird for our own son. They're still doing that for me.
Wow.
And I can still hear them murmur in their room, hey, Pupi, we need to talk to Gordo. What's happening here? It's like we're losing him. I can hear my mom talking to my dad about that. And here I am in my room, like, they're just rejecting the truth. Like,
Wow.
yeah, it's heavy.
It is heavy.
Yeah.
Well, this is really fascinating. I'm loving this. So thank you so much for sharing. Justine, let's switch to your story a little bit. Let's hear about your Mormon Canadian upbringing is very different than Ben's,
Yes,
right?
very.
Yeah. Let's hear some of your story.
I actually was born in London, and
How far is London from Toronto?
2.5 hours.
Which direction?
Oh man,
Cardinal points. I think north.
I don't know.
Okay.
We're terrible with cardinal points.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Couple hours from Toronto,
All
some
I know
direction.
is Ben always drives because I'm really
If
bad with
people are
directions.
curious, Google it.
Oh, east. I remember now. East. It's east. Yeah.
Let's see. So I'm the youngest of 7. My dad is a convert to the church. His best friend is my mom's brother. And so through my uncle, my dad converted to the church in his early 20s and ended up serving a mission in France. My mom always had a crush on my dad, but she's a lifelong member. And they end up getting married, settling in Ontario, and having 7 children.
Do you know if your mom's ancestors go way back in the church?
Go back to the States.
Okay.
To the pioneers.
Okay.
Yeah. My mom's family goes way back, and my dad is a convert, and my dad's mom is from England. She came over to Canada as a war bride. I guess how I would paint my childhood in Mormonism is incredibly positive, because I grew up in a very loving, stable home. And I was the baby of the family, so I was the baby that got passed around in sacrament meeting because everyone wanted to hold me. My parents were always in leadership callings. My dad was a branch president at one point. My mom was Relief Society president, Young Women's president, primary president, pretty much rotated. The place that she settled in and was most happy in was being Young Women's president. And the place my dad settled in and was most happy was being Scoutmaster. So they settled in London when they had teenagers, and then I was their baby. And I would say London was their golden years in Mormonism, because London at that time, before Ben's time in London, had a beautiful community as well.
Okay.
Ontario does Mormon community so well, I think. And they had amazing young women's camps. My mom was the young women's leader. She was like a second mom to a lot of these girls. She would throw them their surprise 16 birthday parties, and just was really involved that way with my older teenagers and their social lives. And my mom and the good friends that she had in London served very well. They were always serving people.
Yeah.
And when we eventually moved away from London and my mom came back, when Ben and I were living there and married, she had like a line of people wanting to say hi to her, because my family was very loved in London. I would say that was their prime Mormon time. And financially as well. Like, my dad had a good job. My mom and dad bought their dream house, and they were going to raise their family there. So then we moved to Niagara Falls when I was 10, because my dad lost his job in London and got a job in Niagara Falls. So we moved to London, and that was incredibly hard for my family. My 2 older brothers, so the 2 brothers that are closest to me in age were teenagers at the time. When we moved to Niagara Falls, it was very, very hard on them. But it was great for me, and it was great for my sister. Me and my sister assimilated very well into Niagara Falls and into the ward. But for everyone else in my family, it was like a culture shock. Because I think it's very interesting, Ontario. I personally have this opinion that every stake has its own culture, and then every ward has its own culture. And definitely the culture of the London stake versus the Hamilton stake was very different. And the culture of the London ward versus the St. David's ward was like black and white. And so my family had a really hard time living in this ward.
Now,
beginning.
Did you know Ben while you were living in Niagara Falls? Because that's near Welland,
I moved
right?
to London when I was 10, so I didn't get to know Ben till I was 14.
Okay.
For the youth group.
And he was living where?
He was in Welland.
Okay, so you did finally. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I just Googled it. So it looks like, and this doesn't totally matter, but I think it's helpful. It looks like London is about 2.5 hours southwest of Toronto. So it's like Toronto. This is going to be backwards for people, but it's like Toronto, Niagara Falls is down southeast of Toronto, and then London is kind of a couple hours west, and then Detroit's. It looks like Toronto's like right in the middle between Detroit and Toronto.
Yeah.
So it's kind of almost like a Y falling on its side to the right. So
Yeah,
anyway,
we lived in the Canada-Toronto mission,
yeah, okay.
which President Monson was mission president over.
Nice.
That was a big deal.
Yeah, okay.
I would paint my childhood as very Mormon, but in the most loving way possible. Family home evenings, Sunday dinners with roast beef, mashed potatoes,
Yep.
Caesar salad. That was my favorite. So I would literally come home from church starving.
What is it with
parents
that?
would
Something about
slave
church
away.
makes you hungry.
My dad would put on the apron, he'd peel the potatoes, my mom would get the roast out of the oven, and then I would just be in heaven because that meal was so good.
Yeah, that's very Mormon.
Yeah. But definitely Sabbath day holy was, you don't shop, you don't watch TV. At that time in my childhood, you don't drink caffeine.
Okay.
That changed later. Definitely no coffee, like word of wisdom, very strict. Just basic Mormon, like very common.
You mentioned in your outline sort of a Saturday's Warrior theology that permeated your family. Do you want to explain what you mean by that?
Yeah, my older sister does not like that movie because I think over time even though she's still active, she's like deconstructed it.
And for our never Mormons, you'll have to explain what we're talking about.
So it's very interesting how Utah culture still came into our home because of being Mormon, but we lived all the way in Canada. And one of the things that came in was the media. And Saturday Night Warriors was a play, I'm assuming in Utah, in the 70s, right?
Yep. And then, an album.
And then it got turned into a movie.
Yep.
And then that movie came into my home. And because we didn't really watch TV on Sunday, but we would watch like good feel movies, but we also had our collection of our church movies. That was part of my regular rotation. I'm the youngest of 7, so I was that girl. I'm sorry, do you want me to explain the movie first?
So you were Emily in the Flinders family, basically?
Yeah, I was Emily. Like, I so connected with her. I was the one, because, how do I get into this?
It's basically, in Saturday's Warrior / Mormon theology, all these family members live up in heaven as spirits before they come to earth. And they all agree to be in a family before they come to earth as spirits. And so the Flinder family is the main family in Saturday's Warrior. Emily's the youngest. Yeah. And Emily, there's a point in Saturday's Warrior. And ironically, Margie's dad was in a production of Saturday's Warrior, back after they joined the church in the 70s. But there's this point where the Flinders family is trying to decide whether or not to have that final kid. And I think it's Emily, right? And because the world is saying zero population, don't have too many kids. But Emily's up there in heaven saying, don't forget your promise, Jimmy, and
oh my God.
Yeah,
and anyway.
I would say the reason I internalized that movie so much is I have to share, okay, this is where I'm going to struggle emotionally and also to share my story, but also respect my family. My older sister, she's 2 years older than me. She was born very premature. She was born 1 pound and only had a 10% chance to live. My family believes that it was through priesthood blessings and constant miracles that she lived. I later learned the medical terminology that she was a fighter. I think she was a fighter, but I grew up learning that it was constant priesthood blessings. And my mom shared this spiritual experience with me that when she was looking at my sister in the NICU fighting for her life, and my mom was sitting in a wheelchair, she felt strongly that she would still have another child. And the reason that my sister was born premature is that she was a twin, and my mom miscarried that twin. And the spiritual narrative around that was that I was that twin. And then
that passed away.
That passed
Your
away.
spirit,
My spirit,
was destined to be your sister's twin.
Yeah.
But the twin died.
Yeah.
So then the spirit had to come to a subsequent body.
So my spirit went back, just like in that movie.
Yeah.
They got sent, but then something happened, so then the spirit came back.
Yeah.
And so, but I was always meant to come, and I came 2 years later.
And there is a disabled sister named Pam Flinders in the musical as well.
Yes, and
so,
I also connected to that.
Yeah.
She was physically disabled, my sister, because of, at the time, in order to keep her alive, she got a lot of oxygen to her brain, which killed a lot of her brain cells, which further down the line caused her to be mentally disabled. I do want to just say that she is an amazing person, though, and is living her own life.
Right.
So I very much internalized that, and I felt that I was supposed to be there for her.
Right.
Sorry, I was supposed to.
You existed.
That almost like, well, first of all, that I was supposed to be in this family, but I was also supposed to be there for her.
Yeah.
To help her through this life.
Yeah.
And that there are things about that I want to share more in my teenage years. That was really a struggle for me.
How old were you? Would you say that you kind of were made aware of, or you felt that sense of, I guess it's a role, a responsibility. Do you remember when you kind of learned that about yourself, that kind of story or framing? Were you very young?
Very young. I just think since I can remember, because when we were young, we were best playmates. And we played so well together, and we were always together. And we were like twins. We were like twins because she was behind me physically and mentally, even though I was younger. So we kind of did everything at the same time.
Yeah.
Until when I became a teenager, and then that changed for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so your family strongly identified with Saturday's Warrior. Saturday's Warrior also has this notion of exceptionalism, of Mormon families are the best families. And just the idea of Saturday's Warrior is Jesus is coming soon, and those who live in the modern age were saved by God for the last days to usher in the second coming of Jesus. And so the same exceptionalism, I think, that you addressed, Ben, also would have existed in your family.
Oh, yeah. I thought I was a valiant spirit.
Yeah.
I thought that I was predestined. I thought I was in this church because I was, valiant. I mean, it was ingrained in us in youth that we were the rising generation, that we were here in the last days.
Right.
That we were so strong and so spiritual. Like, we heard that constantly. We heard that over and over and over in our stake as youth. And so, I definitely, I think, grew like this self-righteous superiority complex for sure. It didn't affect my friendships as a child, but it affected how I did friendships as a teenager.
Yeah, I think another thing in Saturday's Warrior that was so effective, and it's a musical, and we should just say, like, the songs are...
Oh, those songs made me cry.
Right? Yeah. Is also this idea of Jimmy. It's Jimmy, right, who kind of gets lured away.
The brother, the son, the brother.
And I also had a brother like that.
Kind of falls away.
Kind of falls away and has friends outside the faith. It's dealt with in very much a way of like they're a threat.
Jimmy, oh Jimmy, don't listen to them.
It's a family fighting, and it's really framed as like trying to save a family member because they're out in the world and have friends with and are questioning.
So I did
what the family's
internalize
doing.
that as well, because that was one of my favorite scenes.
Yeah,
was when they're like rocking out around the car.
Hey Flinders, no Flinders, come on, you got to go
Jimmy,
Flinders.
oh Jimmy.
Yes.
And so
We're laughing, but this is.
Yeah, I remember when Justine showed me that
But no,
movie. I'm
it's
like,
heavy.
what?
It's
It was real.
Yeah,
I'm just like a 7, 8, 9, 10-year-old girl thinking this is real.
And it's heavy.
Yeah.
It's heavy for.
Yeah, and so I had that complex about people who weren't members of the church. And I'm not living in Utah. I'm living in Ontario, Canada. Alberta has a big Mormon population, but Ontario does not.
Yeah.
I was like one of 2 members in my high school.
So that's like
Yeah.
most of the people
Oh, most of the people
would fall in the category
in my
of
life
threat.
were not members.
Yes.
Yeah. So I think something I do, so we moved to Niagara Falls and I met my Never Mormon best friend, Shannon, and she plays a huge part in my Mormon story. Let me get emotional again. She became my best friend the first day I went to school. She lived around the corner from me. She also became best friends with my sister, and she loved my sister, and she accepted my sister, and also she found happiness in my home. She found stability and peace in my home. So often, more times than not, she was in my home after school, almost sometimes 3 days a week. She would often stay for dinner. And my mom became like a parental, a big figure in her life.
How old were you, by the way, when you met her?
I was 10 in grade 5.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So she was like my really good friend, but at the same time, I was in the ward where there was also a large group of young women. We had like 30 young women, and we were the St. David's girls, and so we had a very large youth group. And I became good friends with girls in this ward as well.
Is that a school, St. David's?
It's the ward. That's it's
okay.
like a little town outside of Niagara Falls.
Got it. Okay.
And that's where our building was, so we were called the St. David's ward.
Got it.
And I really struggled throughout my youth years, feeling completely like it was fine when I was a child, but when I became a teenager, navigating my sister, who was also part of that Mormon community, and it's such a small community, so all ages are coming together and socializing, and because we're all each other has, we're always with each other. But me feeling like I couldn't always completely embrace it because I had social anxiety, always bringing my sister along with me, and I always had her there with me. Needless to say, my sister's very outgoing and also could make friendships on her own, but she just leaned very heavily on me in her social life. And because our social life was all pretty much Mormonism, I was never without her there.
Yeah.
And I never felt like I could truly be myself. And then at the same time, I wasn't investing in my high school friends because they didn't have the same standards. And I didn't feel safe around them. And I didn't understand their lives. And alcohol scared me. And drugs scared me. And sex scared me. So I just didn't invest in them. But then I had to invest in this very limited group of people that I didn't always feel like I connected with. And so I always fell back on Shannon.
Your friend?
My friend.
Now, was Shannon LDS?
No, she's a Never Mormon.
Okay.
Yeah. But I would take her with me to the youth conferences. Sometimes she came to church. Sometimes she would come and hang out with our youth group. And I kind of just she was like my comfort zone as between the two worlds.
Right. Yeah, like a bridge or almost between. Did she feel like a sister or did she feel like a friend?
She felt like family.
She felt like family.
Yeah, she was more than a friend. She was family. She is family.
Yeah.
Did you try to convert her to the church?
She's like, you betcha.
Oh, yeah. We took her to the Palmyra pageant, and we went and saw the historical sites. And she was, I think, almost 14 and felt something there and said she wanted to be baptized. Went back. She's very close to her grandma. who has since passed away. Her grandma always grew up taking her to church, this cute little chapel in this little town we lived outside of Niagara Falls.
Not a Mormon church.
No.
Yeah.
It was, just this, and like a great pastor, a great community. And her grandma and her grandpa were very committed to that church and would take Shannon with them as a little girl. And her grandma got very upset that she was thinking about joining this church and told her, no, you need to stay away. They're a lot. Mm-hmm. And so she decided to not join.
What is a lot? That sounds like a backhanded
I don't know.
compliment.
I probably just that we follow a lot of rules.
I mean, that's fair.
I
think that's such a great
I like
descriptor.
it. I love it. It's basically like those Mormons are a lot.
Mormons are
It's
a
a
lot.
kind. It's like a Canadian kind way
It's
of
just
saying.
crazy how much people actually know about Mormonism. Like, it's crazy once you're on the other side, like, oh, you knew this? I didn't know this either.
And I know what was very at the time nice was the youth group, because we did have an amazing youth group.
Yeah.
But her grandma's like, you can find that at high school.
Yeah, right.
You don't need to join
Right.
this.
So were you disappointed that Shannon didn't join?
I think I was disappointed. Yes,
Yeah.
I
But
was.
it didn't affect your friendship?
Not at all.
Okay.
No, she just was my buffer.
Right.
So you mentioned, and this is in your outline, you mentioned a lot of sort of modesty, law of chastity stuff in those high school years. Is that something you want to talk about?
Yeah.
Because that's important to your story?
Yeah.
Okay.
The ward that we moved into was very hyper vigilant about modesty.
Meaning
Yeah, what did that look like?
Yeah.
Meaning you don't wear tank tops. You show up to activities in a t-shirt, or you're going to get sent home, or someone's going to give you a sweater.
Sleeves, always sleeves.
Yeah.
Right? Okay.
You go, or and our steak was too. Our steak had the box with the sweaters.
What does that mean?
So when you show up to a dance, if you're not modestly dressed, or you even have something inappropriately graphic on your t-shirt, like a graphic tee that's not appropriate, they'll get like a piece of clothing from the box and give it to you to wear at the dance.
And that's if any chest is cleavage is showing or shoulders, right?
Yeah.
Which is bizarre because just like last week or the week before, the Mormon Church has announced new garments that allow women to show their shoulders.
Yeah, and I think a lot of millennials, such as myself, are having a really hard time with that because we grew up in the modest is hottest era. So that was Utah culture coming to me as well, and like that merch that like you could get. It was so exciting. We could go to the Palmyra pageant, and you could go to the bookstore, and you could buy a T-shirt that said "Mormon Girl" or "Modest is hottest." Did
you ever have to wear anything from the modesty box or whatever it was
No,
called?
because I knew how to be modest.
Okay. So,
I was very good at it.
but that was very shaming if you had to wear something
yeah.
from the modesty box.
Yeah, I remember one time my sister, who I was obviously very protective of, it was like a glow-in-the-dark dance or something, and she was wearing a white long skirt, and someone came up to her telling her it was see-through, and she had to go get changed, and I got very upset.
She had to wear something from the modesty box?
Or go. It was
home.
at a conference, so she would have to go and get changed.
Yeah.
And I told them, no, she's not getting changed. It's modest. I think that, and I could tell that leader was very uncomfortable. But yeah, so there is one story. Like I was so modest that I specifically picked out a bathing suit that was a tankini, so it was a two-piece, but it was more modest than a one-piece. So it was like a tank top tankini with a cute skirt.
Oh, yeah.
And I wore it to Young Women's Camp. And my mom was Young Women's president at the time. And although my mom definitely encouraged the modesty, like her one counselor was very vocal about that I was wearing a two-piece. And my mom had to take her on a 2-hour conversation to kind of bring her down and tell her, no, you can't approach her and tell her to go get dressed.
I'm guessing the amount of belly that it showed would be so minimal.
I didn't show any.
I was going to say there are a lot
was
of
none.
There are a lot of tankinis where you don't.
It was just a two-piece.
Literally, it's in two pieces.
As the bellies are bad
Two-piece.
anyway, but it would have been, yeah.
And I felt like
Yes, that amount of
Yeah.
attention and focus.
very vigilant.
So if somebody were to just play devil's advocate and say, hey, what's wrong with teaching women, Margie's already laughing at me, but I want to explain it to the Never Mormons. If somebody were to say, what's wrong with teaching you to respect your bodies and to not be too revealing, and then bodies are sacred, whatever the justification was. Explain why that there's a dark side to that.
The difference is that I was taught that I was dressing modestly to help keep priesthood holders worthy.
Mormon boys, basically.
Yeah, so that they didn't look at me and want to masturbate.
And I know this is weird, but why is that harmful to you? Or was it harmful to you or to women?
Well, it's the whole purity culture thing. First of all, I didn't even know what masturbation was. Yeah. Like, I was so sexually naive. Like, I didn't know what that meant. All I knew was how it worked. Like, what happened. That was my conversation given to me. But other than that, I just stayed so far away from it that I didn't know anything about it. But I was also taught at the same time, you need to be modest because you need to help these priesthood holders stay worthy. Yeah. And that's as far as it went for me. I never questioned further past that. I was just taught, okay, that, and also the other thing for me, and this is why millennials are having a hard time with the garment, is I was taught we need to keep our closet garment friendly for when eventually we do go to the temple, which meant wearing sleeves and clothes past the knee.
And how did that harm you? What if somebody says, what's wrong with that? You wore sleeves. Big deal.
Honestly, as a teenager, I'm not sure it harmed me too much. Because you could still find really cute clothes that were modest. It did harm me in that I didn't want to go to my prom because a lot of people in Utah, you have stores where you can buy modest prom dresses, but in Ontario, you have to order it from the States. It was like $300 to $400. And then I'd be showing up to my prom in like a princess dress when everyone else is wearing like strapless. So I just chose not to go to my prom. And I went to my seminary grad instead that night.
Yeah, I mean, I want to just say a couple things. We could do a whole thing about this, about how it can be damaging. But I'll say I think it's an introduction into this psychological area where women are responsible for men, for what men feel, or other people's experiences. And that can bleed over into a lot of just unhealthy behaviors. It can turn to abuse. But it's this introduction of like, I'm responsible in some way for what you're feeling, and someone else gets the pass. And I will always be responsible for it. I think it's an introduction to that. I also think it's sort of an introduction to assessment, that your body actually is free to discuss by people around you, people in authority, and it creates this a dissociative experience of what it feels like to feel good in your body, to feel good in clothes, to actually have this inside-out relationship at a time that I think is already very vulnerable because your body is changing. A lot of times you don't have control over how big your breasts are, sometimes you're slow to even recognize when you need a bra. Like it's just, so I think those are a couple things I would just start with that I've noticed for women who are adults now and have left the church. They are still, it is something that still comes up for them.
Yeah, I feel the harm more as an adult now.
Oh, wow.
Than I just deconstructing it and learning what purity culture actually is. And when I had to wear the garment, it took me a really long time to not enjoy the garment. But at that point, I was starting to be like, but why can't I wear this cute summer outfit? But I think how it harmed me as a young girl is that it made me naive. And I have to say, I was just lucky in Mormonism that I was surrounded by good people. That I didn't have anyone that tried to take advantage of me being naive. I just had good people who were trying to do their best. I had good men and good men leaders. So I got lucky in Mormonism, I think. Because if something would have happened to me, I would not have known what was happening.
You would have been vulnerable to an abuser, basically.
Yeah.
And there are plenty of abusers everywhere, but in Mormonism too. So you just kind of lucked out in that way.
I lucked out in Mormonism.
Yeah.
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 I would also, going back to Ben's discussion about being racked with guilt that he had committed the sin next to murder many, many times, I would imagine it might be a lot as a young Mormon woman to carry around the idea that you could be the cause of young men committing the sin next to murder?
I don't know if I even carried around guilt. I was just hyper focused on the checklist. So like I liked to go to my room and I would take my journal and I would take my Strength for Youth pamphlet and I would play church music. And this was like my downtime in my room. And I would reread the Strength for Youth pamphlet and go, check, 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 check. I'm good.
Right. It's like almost, and I think you said this earlier, feeling afraid of alcohol, afraid of sex, afraid of, and I hear in that kind of stay safe.
Oh, it was fear.
Keeps me safe and valued.
Yeah,
I'm more valuable with the checklist.
Yeah,
And
I got a lot of value being a checklist girl. I got a lot of validation. I was told, constantly praised by my leaders, constantly compared to even their own daughters, that why can't you be more like Justine?
yeah.
I was told I was the perfect ending to my family. I was told I was so Christ-like because of how I was like with my sister. Completely validated, but at the same time, I was just doing everything I was told I needed to do to be good, never questioning it, and never trying to understand why I needed to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just like we talked about with you, Ben, about the good things that Mormonism brought your family as immigrants to Canada, but the harmful things, right? I could see somebody saying, well, maybe Mormonism helped keep you out of trouble in some ways, Justine, and the dark side is what you brought with you in terms of body shame.
I think
sort of
Mormonism made me feel very safe. My family was very safe. But here's the thing. I think Mormonism, when you're raised in a really good, loving Mormon home, it is very safe. But as I talked to my friend Shannon about this, but then it doesn't prepare you for the real world. And I started seeing the harm when I moved away from home and started going to university.
Right.
And entered the real world, and I wasn't able to make friendships or relationships. Like I chose to move away to go to a school just an hour and a half away from my home and live in residence because my older sister had lived there. And she did the residence thing, and she made good non-member friends, and she roomed with non-member friends that she's still really good friends with today. And she was able to do that, and I thought I can do that too. And then I went, and I couldn't do it. I was the weird religious girl on the floor. I had someone reach out to me to try and invite me to a keger, and I immediately clamped up in fear and told her, oh, that's not for me. And then we didn't become friends. I tried to meet with a group of girls in one of our dorm rooms to try and be outgoing and get to know people. And the minute they found out I was Mormon, because it had come out somehow before, in front of a whole group of strangers, I was asked what the garment was, because they had known someone who was Mormon and they knew about the garments. And so I had to explain in front of a whole room of people what the garment was.
basically about your underwear.
Yeah, but I wasn't even endowed.
Yeah.
And then, and because I didn't drink, I just couldn't build friendships because you can choose not to drink, but you maybe aren't afraid of those social settings as a Never Mormon. Like you can be a Never Mormon who chooses not to drink, but you're not afraid of the social settings. It's just your choice. I was like, no, I can't go. This is not good for me. I was very much carried forth with fear.
And I think that's reinforced in Mormonism too, when they talk about like, if you're at a party and you're holding a cup, even if you're not drinking, but you're with drinking people, the appearance of evil.
Yeah, and you can be
akin
tempted
to the evil itself. Yeah. Or staying away. We always had those lessons of like, are you going to go, how close to the edge do you go to evil? Yeah. Like really valiant people stay far, far away from that gray area of, so you're really reinforced as being more valiant, more spiritual, I think, and it separates you.
But the thing is that it was the same thing with high school. I didn't invest in my high school friends, but I didn't feel like I fit in with the Mormon group quite so much.
Yeah.
And so I like sat in the middle with my safe non-Mormon friend who understood me and my family and my sister. But then I go to university and she's not there anymore. And I don't fit in with the YSA branch there because I don't have a car and I can't drive to all the activities. And the branch is like 30 minutes away. A mission couple has to come and pick me up every Sunday so I can go to church. And so I'm not like really feeling it with the branch, but then I'm not investing in the group at school. And so I'm just constantly never feeling like I fit in anywhere socially.
Why did you go to BYU? I'm just curious.
No. Okay, so I grew up.
Don't just say no. What are you talking about? That's what every Mormon kid does.
Utah did not have a good reputation in my upbringing.
For education or?
For anything.
Oh, why? What's wrong with Utah in your upbringing?
It's like Utah's weird. Everyone there is blonde.
You're blonde.
This is dyed. I'm redhead. I don't know.
I'm just teasing you a
It's
little
more
bit, but-
cultural, and we're more spiritual here because we have to be type thing.
More spiritual.
Because you're more of a minority.
Yeah, we're more of a minority.
Did they use the term the mission field where you were?
I never heard that term until I went on my mission.
Okay.
But we had stronger, more deeper testimonies because we had to have these testimonies in order to stand strong.
So Utah was the place where the Mormons were weaker.
Yes.
Where you grew up.
Yeah.
In Canada.
Definitely. And had a weird culture. That changed for me when I went on my mission, by the way.
You stopped looking at Utah as weird?
I just had really nice Utah companions.
Oh, okay.
And then I was like, oh, they're not all blonde. Because none of them were blonde.
So
Anyways,
interesting.
I did not want to go to BYU, but Alberta is the Canadian BYU.
Southern Alberta?
For Ontarians.
Yeah.
So many Ontario people go to Alberta for school.
That's where you went? Southern Alberta?
So after this year at university where I didn't do well socially and I was very alone, and I dated a non-member, and that was a very lonely experience for me. I decided, I originally did want to go to Alberta because my brothers were already there, but I withheld going because of my sister, and I wanted to stay close to her. But I did eventually end up crying on the phone to my mom, and she told me, you need to go and live your life and do what you need to do. So I did move out to Alberta. I didn't know my roommates. And I had this glorious vision in my mind that I would make these amazing friends and I would finally live this Mormon dream in Alberta. And that didn't really work out that way for me.
Was this Lethbridge or?
I went to Edmonton because my brothers were in Edmonton at the time.
Okay.
And one of my good friends growing up was in Edmonton as well. Yeah.
You mentioned in your outline an experience, and I'm only mentioning this because you mentioned it, an experience you had making out that led you to some guilt. Did you want to tell that story?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Yes. I think with me, you'll have to use the outline a lot. So when I was at school for the first time, I got my first boyfriend. So I never dated before that. I had never kissed a boy either.
Oh.
Yeah.
So you reached college as a Mormon girl having never kissed a boy.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you're still in Ontario at this point.
Yes.
In college.
Yeah.
But are you near Niagara Falls? Is that college?
It's in Kitchener.
Okay.
And it's an hour and a half away from Niagara Falls and an hour away from London and an hour and a half from Toronto.
Got it.
So the thing is like, maybe I'm going to back up a little bit into my teenage years. I never felt super attractive in Mormonism because none of the boys ever liked me. I had boys in my high school like me, but the minute they found out I was Mormon through my friends, they stopped liking me. So I never really got that in high school. I guess because I carried that Mormon label really well, so everyone knew I was Mormon. And then in our youth group, none of the boys that I liked me, except for this one over here. He really liked me, but I didn't like him.
Yep.
At the time, and we might back up into that, but so I didn't feel attractive in Mormonism, and I couldn't understand why. And then with my friend Shannon, when I was like 17 and we were in grade 12, I started hanging out with more of her and her school friends. And a bunch of them had a crush on me, which was so new to me. But they knew through Shannon that I was Mormon, so they never tried anything.
That's interesting.
But according to Shannon, if I had not have been Mormon, they for sure would have gone and done something about that.
Yeah.
So that never really happened for me. For some reason, in the Mormon bubble, I was not that girl.
Yeah.
And I had friends who were that girl.
Yeah.
All the guys liked those particular friends over and over and over.
Yeah.
So I go to university and I've never had a boyfriend. I've never kissed anyone. And I just want a boyfriend. Like, I just want that experience. And somehow I end up connecting with this guy who, looking back, I don't know why. And we end up dating, and I end up having my first kiss with him, and he was Catholic, and so he kind of understood that he knew he himself did not want to have sex before marriage. He had made that goal for himself, or at least that's what he told me, and so we had that in common. And I talked to him about the church, and I shared with him the Strength for Youth pamphlet. But, you're by yourself in a dorm room watching a movie on your laptop in your bed, and you start making out. And that was the first time that I had ever made out with a boy, that I had ever done anything like take off my shirt while making out with a boy. And it never really got further than that, except for things over the clothes. And then I remember not necessarily feeling bad about it, but then at the same time saying oh, I guess I can make mistakes. Because I had that superiority complex. Even among my Mormon friends, I thought I was more righteous than them.
Yeah.
Because they were out kissing boys and making out with boys and meeting with bishops and doing all that stuff and trying to push the boundaries and dress immodestly. And I never did that. And so I thought I was just a better Mormon than them. And then I go and do this with this non-member boy, and I'm like, oh, I guess I can make mistakes. And then that led me to the first time when we finally broke up, feeling like I needed to repent and meet with a bishop. And so since I wasn't connected to the YSA branch at the time, I went to my home ward and met with the bishop there. And like I said, I was very lucky to be surrounded by very good people.
Yeah.
Because the way he handled it, I was so nervous. I was sitting on my fingers, shaking, not wanting to tell him. And I hadn't even done anything that bad.
Yeah.
And he didn't ask questions. He didn't probe. He just said, you're good. You can keep taking the sacrament and you're good. And then he came out of that interview and then went on to praise me to my parents. Wow. You have such a wonderful daughter. You have such a good daughter. And so I felt like that was a beautiful repentance process. And then I moved to Alberta and I started dating a priesthood holder, returned missionary, which was such a contrast. Yeah.
You mentioned, and I'm only mentioning this because it was in your outline. I just want to make sure you don't miss anything. You mentioned during one of the times, I guess you were making out, feeling some guilt because you had an experience that you had never experienced before. Did you want to talk about that? Okay.
Yes. I was so naive. I didn't know what I was doing. And I didn't understand that I was what I was doing to this guy. And that there was a point where we were just they call it dry grinding, right? Where it's over the clothes. And I can say that because that's the term my bishop used when he was trying to figure out what I did.
And we call it dry humping, but you call it dry grinding.
Maybe the same thing.
No, it is. Yeah.
Yeah. Dry humping, dry grinding, where you're just you still have your clothes on and he came in his clothes and I didn't know what was happening.
Yeah.
And it's my mind just went into protection. We're just not going to think about that and we're just going to move on. And that happened and the end.
Yeah. Kind of compartmentalize it.
And I never felt that much. So we're just going to keep going here.
Mm-hmm.
I'm so naive. Someone some ex-Mormon influencer that I follow talked about her being sexually neglected.
Yeah.
I felt like I had been sexually neglected in my sex education.
Yeah.
Because of, I think, the culture of my ward.
Yeah.
And how hyper vigilant they were about modesty and keeping the law of chastity and keeping yourselves pure for the temple and for marriage.
Yeah.
That was the only focus and the only conversations, and we didn't talk about what it would happen if we actually did have sex.
Yes.
So
That's right.
and then I went to Alberta, and like I said, because I've heard stories about girls like you did that panel where all those girls were dating at BYU and how they did not have pleasant experiences sometimes. Like I said, I got very lucky in that I dated really respectable guys. And so I dated this RM, and we dated for 8 months. And it was like night and day compared to my other relationship. And I was like, see, this is what it's like to date a priesthood holder. Someone who knows that the Holy Ghost goes to bed at midnight. Someone who knows that we can only kiss while standing up. Like someone as vigilant as me. Like this is how you, and like we held hands and we have fun dancing at the dances and we can do all the social things. And this is awesome. Yeah.
I see.
Why did you just grunt, Ben? I just heard a groan.
You know, this is a part where sometimes I had to sit with myself and just, which is poisonous to me because I overanalyze things to the point where she's telling that story of safety and stuff. And again, I don't want to say too much because I want her to keep going, but it's just having opportunities placed in front of you and just overanalyzing things that are so simple as like courting a girl normally. You know, everything was so demonized.
Yeah,
Growing
like
up
So
in-
much danger.
Like what I did with
Yeah.
that first boyfriend was totally normal.
Yeah.
And I should not have felt like I needed to repent.
Everything is so demonized. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
I see friends from my country dating girls and having platonic great experiences. And here I am. The only way I go on a date if somebody else tags along and you go double dating. And you don't even have a chance to really explore personalities or do something to get to know yourself and your confidence level. I mean, again, I don't want to
Well, that's
praise-
more your story. We'll come to that.
Yeah, no, but it's the thing though. Like, anyways, yeah, I don't.
He has-
Yeah, when you're talking about being so terrified to talk to the bishop that you're sitting on your hands and
Yeah.
shaking,
Yeah.
that's almost
not
trauma
normal.
for behavior that's super benign and normal.
Yeah. But it was also behavior I didn't know anything about.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah. But I knew it was wrong.
yeah, yeah.
So then I
In
go
quotes,
and
wrong in
yeah,
quotes,
and
yeah.
I go and I date this guy in Alberta, and it was a very positive experience. But I always knew I was going to serve a mission. So
Right.
As you were going, really quickly before we maybe jump back to Ben, as you were in college, what was your vision for yourself, for why you were going to college, what you were going to college for, and what would happen in your life
there was
from
like
college?
this internal desire in me to be like my older siblings. Like I would follow my older siblings' successes and then think I can do that too, or I want to do that too. So I saw my older sister go away and be able to balance both of those worlds. And I was like, I want to do that too. Because I felt a lot of resentment. Like I would see my friend Shannon, and she's an incredible person. And no one was telling her what she needed to do to be good. She was just being good. And she made friendships like this and was like building this amazing high school community. She went to a different high school, by the way, and making friends and having all these great social experiences. And here I am like reading a book by myself in the library while I'm eating my lunch because I feel so lonely. It wasn't like that every day, but I sometimes found myself doing that. And I was just like, why is it that I have to do all these things that the church is telling me I need to do? I have to dress modestly. I have to be the Christ-like example. I have to follow the Strength for Youth pamphlet. And she can just go and be.
Yeah.
And I wanted that for myself, but at the same time, I didn't know how to get it while being Mormon.
Yeah.
And so I tried that first year and I failed.
Yeah.
And I was miserable.
yeah.
And I was weird. So I went to, I moved, my therapist tells it how I was the big fish in the little pond. I was very comfortable in Mormonism and it validated me in a lot of ways. But then I was trying to go out into the bigger pond where I was a little fish in the bigger pond. And so what did I do? Because I didn't have those life skills to face society, I go to just a bigger Mormon bubble where I can be the big fish in the little pond again.
In a bigger pond, slightly bigger pond.
Slightly bigger pond with more options. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And did you envision yourself, did you go to college so that you could have a thriving career as a working mom?
No.
No, what was it?
So I always grew up with the mentality that I need to get a degree so that if anything were to happen to my husband, I could go back to school and get a job.
And so what type of degree would that be?
So I ended up, English was my best subject and history was one of my favorite subjects. So I went and majored in English and minored in history with the idea that after my kids are grown, I will go to teacher's college and become an English and history teacher, which I'm now there, and it's not as easy to do that as I thought. So.
But you were going to get your degree, but then just have lots of babies?
Yep.
And be a stay-at-home
I was
mom?
going to find a white Mormon man. I have to emphasize that because I married a person of color who was going to be like an engineer and would make good money. And I would stay home and be a stay-at-home mom.
And were you taught the white part by the Mormon church?
No, that's just who I envisioned in my mind.
Okay.
Because, and this will play in Ben's story later. So like, I don't want to get too much into it, but like Ben had a huge crush on me when we were teenagers, and he just didn't fit that Mormon mold that I was told to want in a Mormon man, which was clean shaven, honestly white. That's just what I had in my mind. And someone that took life seriously so that they could go and get a really good career. And so I never envisioned myself working because I was told very much so the message, the most noblest thing that you will ever do is to be a mother. And the best work you'll ever do is within the walls of your own home. And that you need to be a stay-at-home mom at whatever cost, because that is the greatest blessing that you can give to your children. Okay. And daycare was kind of demonized for me. Yeah. You don't put your kid in daycare. You stay home. That's the best thing for your babies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we'll come back. I think that theme's going to reemerge. Yeah. But we never heard about you liking Justine. What's up with that? Wait, should we? I mean, so in high school?
No, actually, when I lived in Welland, again, before I really took off in Welland, I went to a dance. This is my first dance ever, and I don't like flashy girls. I just like girls with natural beauty, that don't try hard, because to me that's what's most important. The naturality, is that a word? Naturality?
Natural.
I like it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and for me, when I saw Justine, I just saw her not trying very hard, and that's what I was attracted to. Everybody else was going for the same other girls, and I just feel like, but I like this one. She seems nicer, and I also felt like she's harder to get because she has this strong Mormon personality. Something I'd never really...
I wasn't a flirt.
She wasn't a flirt, yeah.
And so going back to this war, these girls who were also the ones who had the boys liking them over and over, they would go before every Mormon dance and get their hair done, like at a hair salon.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they would go and they would buy a new dress and they would do their makeup and show up like the bee's knees.
That's what I meant.
Yeah. Like their lives depended on it.
Like their lives.
They kind of did.
Yeah. And for me, I came from a family that was like, no, you just show up in a jean skirt and a ponytail and you go have fun. And we took there was a lot of pride in that in my family.
Yeah.
And so that's what I did. But I also didn't know how to do makeup nice either. So, yeah.
So Ben, did you try and like dance with Justine or even try and get her to like you kind of thing?
No. And it goes back to my level of confidence being dead at this point. This is a point where I'm not myself at all. You know, I'm not very confident at this point in Mormonism. I mean, Justine said that she was going for the white guy, right? In girls, in Mormonism, especially in Ontario, it almost feels like the Hunger Games. You know, I just felt like the lower tiered. You know, my English is not great. I'm from another country. I don't have a status. And all my friends speak English. They're well-versed in the scriptures, well-versed in the gospel. I'm not well-versed at all.
You also had a beard at 15.
I had puberty way too early. So I had facial hair. I looked like a leader. You know, it was one of those things where I just felt so inadequate for me to feel like I could thrive in this social bubble. And also, again, I didn't have that kick that I could just go confidently and ask Justine to dance. Something simple as just asking her for a dance was a challenge for me, which is something I don't know why that was happening, because I hear stories from my parents and my friends from Venezuela that will tell me, man, you were confident before. And what happened? Again, you're in a small bubble and you feel like you had no tools to succeed. And for me, that I felt it from Justine, and I felt it from these other girls. I felt the expectation. You know, I'm a good Mormon boy. I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm not material Mormon. It's material.
I fully accept that.
Yeah.
I saw Ben and I found out he liked me and I was weirded out by it. Yeah.
And one of the darkest parts about Mormonism is up until recently, the church taught for 250 years or 150 years, whatever it is, that people shouldn't date or marry interracially.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was explicitly taught to me, and it was in church curriculum up until a year or two ago. If it's not still there, that you should only date people in your race.
It was not explicitly taught to me, but it's embedded in the doctrine.
Yeah.
So
That's
he's
right.
a Lamanite. Like, right?
Yeah.
Like, as bad as that sounds, like I was taught that every person from South America and every indigenous person is a Lamanite.
And in the Book of Mormon, Lamanites were cursed with dark skin for the wickedness of their ancestors.
Yeah, and I never thought that about him ever. But it's just like, I don't know.
It's the
think
water you swim in.
it's just the internalization of it all. And then just and then as a girl, you know, you're taught to dream about who you're going to marry. You even make a list as to like what's your husband going to be like. And if that person doesn't fit that, then I ain't paying attention to you.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the part of my story where this is when I just become very uneasy about myself, is how was I the way, the person I created could not pull anything in the realm I put myself in. You know, this is something I'm wrestling with now. It's just, what happened? You know, why did I lost so much value within myself when I had it? You know, my friends from the other group brought me up. Same with the Welling guys, they brought me up. But it's all of a sudden internalizing Mormonism and seeing the product in front of me, thinking, I don't meet that criteria, so how do I put myself in there? That's why I decided to go faster with Mormonism, because if I'm going to scoop a girl like Justine, well, I need to become more Mormon. I need to get more serious about these. I need to shave. I need to start parting my hair, and I need to start changing.
He lost a lot of weight, too.
I lost a lot of weight because I was also self-conscious about the fact that I'm also a little bit overweight. Man, like I was just trying so hard for somebody in the bubble to tell me I'm a good-looking dude.
Yeah.
And for me, as sad as that sounds, until I married Justine, it was very difficult to have a Mormon girl to tell me I was good looking. And that was really painful, especially in the youth program where you have very limited choices.
Yeah, that's right.
And you have like 5, 6 girls, and 4 of your friends already like them. And you're like, take a step back because they're better looking. They're better in Mormonism. And then you don't even take a shot.
Yeah, right. And you have that, it sounds like you vary in different ways, like there are differences, but you have that in common, that neither one of you felt particularly chosen or attractive to people in your church kind of group. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I didn't have...
But we didn't choose each other at that time.
No. In fact, Justine wrote me a very nice email, turning me down in a very nice way, telling me, no,
Let's just be friends.
let's just be friends.
Yeah.
I remember, I wish I had that email still.
And I really wanted to be Ben's friend because everyone was Ben's friend. He
At what
didn't
age?
have a lot of, like 16, 17, 18. He didn't have a lot of confidence with like girls and going after girls, but he had so many friends. Everyone loved Ben.
Yeah.
So he made it known to you that he wanted to date you.
Yeah, he sent me an email letting me know that he liked me. And then I sent him an email back telling him, let's be friends. And then from that point, we actually did start becoming friends.
Yeah.
Because before we wouldn't even talk to each other.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
We were in the same youth group with the same friends, and we would be around each other, not acknowledging each other.
I see.
So an idea came to me that's going to sound really shocking to Mormon ears, but I think it's factually true. There is an element of white supremacy in Mormonism because
For sure.
dark skin is doctrinally equated with evil or wickedness in Mormonism. It's just a fact. It's in every piece of scripture that Joseph Smith produced. The Book of Mormon, Lamanites are cursed with dark skin because of their wickedness. And then in the Doctrine and Covenants, in the Book of Moses, in the Book of Abraham, and in the Doctrine and Covenants, all of the scripture that Joseph Smith produced has this idea of the curse of Cain, and of Cain getting dark skin as a curse for his evil, and the descendants of Cain carrying the curse of Cain. So, your no to Ben had to have been at least partially a result of these white supremacist teachings that maybe you didn't ever receive explicitly.
No.
But would you say that was behind your no at the time to Ben, was a culture
I think it was
of white
just
supremacy?
like
I don't
he
want
just did not fit that mold.
Yeah.
That Utah mold, which is white.
Yeah.
Which
Yeah.
is part
Blonde.
of the conditioning.
Or I
the
like dark
church
hair.
conditioning.
Yeah.
They create the idea.
Yeah, he wasn't the ideal. And like we always joked that Ben looked like he was 30 when he was 15 because he had like that beard when he was 15.
Yeah.
And he would do like these crazy sideburns and this huge goatee. And sometimes he would do like mustaches.
Just trying to get attention.
But it had the adverse effect. And then I was just like completely turned off by it. But then also like his confidence level wasn't there. And I thought it was weird that he never talked to me. I was like, he likes me, but he's never talked to me. And I was like, that's just weird. He doesn't even know me.
And Ben, I'm wondering, how much did you know of the Lamanite dark skin curse narrative? Did you identify as a Lamanite in high school? Did you know about the Book of Mormon teachings of Native Americans having dark skin because of the curse? Or
No, not at all. Not before the
Oh, wow.
mission.
Okay.
I did get a book when I was younger in Venezuela with the Book of Mormon Stories. I do remember seeing the Lamanites depicted as savages, but it never really grew into my mind that they were telling in the stories that mainly people from South America. It never really grew into me that was what they were trying to do until much later. For me, it was just stories. And No, and I also thought, and this might come across as weird, but I also thought, oh, they're talking about people in Mexico and Guatemala and El Salvador, not Venezuelans, because Venezuelans, are different. In my mind, I will think that too sometimes.
And
Yeah.
also, like, Canada's so diverse. Like, we have so much diversity because we're a country of immigrants, and we rely so much on immigration. And so, but I wasn't raised in that diverse society. I was raised in a Mormon bubble.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Well, Ben, just going back to your story, like if the focus for you was assimilation into a white Mormon culture, whether it was explicit or not, I think the message you get there is dark Latino, no bueno,
Yeah.
blanco, Mormon, muy bueno.
Yeah.
Is that fair?
Oh,
and
it's fair, yeah.
Yeah, and he told me when we started dating, he didn't like dating girls from his culture. He didn't like dating Latinas.
That's true, Ashley. And that dawns on me now because, again, it's a level of confidence that you lose, right? To go back to my friend Matias and his wife Danila, I hung out with them last year. And they told me a story when I was in high school with them. My friend Danila tells me, like, Ben, when you were in high school, you were el bollo. El bollo means you were a good-looking dude. But Mormonism did not let me display it because at that time I was becoming, this is going to sound like a pun intended, but like I'm becoming white. Kind of like the teachings of Spencer. I feel like I'm becoming white, so I'm looking for the white trophy.
Yeah.
Like why would I, if I want to become white, why would I date a Latina? That's a regressing into what I'm trying to achieve.
And you can't get whiter than me. I'm very white.
No, so I never, search for the Latina. I did before, but once I just became a Mormon, that disappeared because I felt like, no, if I want to attain this, I need to get white.
And that's a form of self-hatred,
Oh yeah.
right? I don't mean to use extreme language, but I don't know how else to
No, and
describe
it's good that you do that because you bring a different context to things that I'm trying to puzzle in my mind. This is why I love therapy. By the way, people watching this episode, seek therapy. Therapy, if you need it, it helps because to me, you're throwing those words and it helps me put a puzzle together in my mind. Like, that makes sense. And for me, yeah, I absolutely agree with you on that.
Yeah, it was also the law of chastity aspect for you as well, because all of his friends in high school were sexually active, and all those girls that liked him were sexually active, and he needed to stay away from that. So even though these girls showed interest in him,
Latinas were sexually active.
he needed to stay away from them because they were
I knew they were dangerous to some degree, yeah.
Peligrosas.
Peligrosa, man. Peligrosa.
All right. Well, I guess the next thing that comes to my mind is Ben's mission, but is there anything else you want to tell about your story up to the sort of college years before we go to Ben's mission?
I think we're good.
Okay.
Yeah.
So y'all became friends after you declined his...
Yeah, pre-mission.
Okay. And y'all stayed in touch. Okay. So should we go to your... Is your mission the next thing?
Absolutely,
Okay.
yeah, let's do that.
All right.
Obviously, because I'm going to Welling a lot now, the next step was a mission. They start talking about going on missions. That's when I make the decision to go as well. Well, I'm not going to be left alone. I'm going to go. I don't know anything about the gospel at this point. I'm like just trying to figure it out, but I got to go because everyone's leaving. When I brought that to my parents, that's when things went south with my parents. Now my dad is no longer in favor. Now my dad has like, okay, stop. Now you're leaving for 2 years. You're going to miss college. Okay? You are going to do what there? You don't know anything. And number 3, and he told me this, I think you had done enough. Now I got to put my foot down here. This is turning into a cult.
And they weren't active by this point. Right?
They were sort of, but now their intent with the church was to bring protection to me. With the things that they were trying to teach me already when I was younger. Hey, don't drink, don't smoke, because those are harmful. But all of a sudden it was flipping because the Mormonism in Venezuela is so different. Now they're experiencing completely different Mormonism in Canada, where like, you're going too fast now. You're going faster than us. And that was a huge fight. I remember my mom just got unhinged of anger. And I perceived them as they were influenced by the adversary. Satan has them. And he wants to stop me from doing this because what is the church teaching me? That when you make that decision, things are going to get tougher. Satan's going to try to stop you because he knows you're going to bring other people into the church. So he wants to derail you. I'm looking at my parents, our clear enemy now. This is no more questioning about them, flimsy or anything. I saw them as the enemy, which is so sad because they're my own parents. Once they
wanted what was best for you.
Oh, yeah. I saw them as the enemy. And then I go to Welland, and everybody's so happy that their kids are going on a mission, and they're getting validation from their families. And here's my family, just no, you're not going. To the point where I made a decision to move to Welland and start working there to come up with money to go serve. And again, my parents being the loving parents they are, I worked, but I didn't come out with $10,000, not even close. And I go back to my parents, say, can you help me pay for the rest of my mission? And they, we'll help you. Like at this point, they had given up. I look at it now and like they must have given up at that point. They're like, we're done. I can see them being defeated at that point of trying to get me to just listen to them.
Yeah.
To the point where like, we'll help you pay for this. And they just open up to even, they even threw this great farewell party for me, you know, with all these friends to send me off on a mission. And I remember when my dad drove me to the airport, I can really still sense that they don't want me to go. They're doing the last thing. My dad pulls me aside at the airport and he's talking to me. And I'm going to cuss because this is exactly how he told me in Spanish. He said, Gordo, vas a la misión, no te la cagues. Translation, go on a mission, I'll pay for it, but don't fuck off. Because now they're looking at it, this is our money now, and we're giving it to you. Don't mess up. And that's the last thing my dad said to me before I took off. And to me, I'm going, and at this point now I'm polishing into church, the restoration. I got the Preach My Gospel, studied the Preach My Gospel, and I went at it to the MTC.
Can I just say one thing really quick? It is blowing my mind that the Mormon Church is worth $250 billion. And there's a young immigrant Latino man with parents who are struggling immigrants.
Yep.
He decides he wants.
They fled for asylum.
Yep.
He decides he's conditioned into wanting to go on a mission by the church, and it's the unwilling parents along with that young man that have to pony up $10,000 to be the Mormon Church's salesperson for 2 years.
Workhorse.
You're going to give up 2 years of your life.
Oh, yeah.
Your parents are giving up their son to what they fear is a cult, and the church is going to have you pay to be their salesperson for 2 years.
And you need to tell them where you worked to come up with that money.
Oh, yeah.
Please tell them.
They were working at my dad was working at
where you worked.
Both.
Oh, me?
Both.
Oh, I work at a quail farm. I was literally working, at this bird farm to ship them into restaurants with my best friend. We would work from 6 in the morning, sometimes 4 in the morning, all the way till 6 p.m. And being a young, immature, pre-missionary guy, I will spend my money having fun with my friends. So I come out with some money, but not even close to the $10,000. I think I came out with maybe $3,000. My parents came up with the rest. But my dad at the time was working at Premium Pork, which is another farm, just slaughtering pigs to ship them for restaurants. Wow. So he didn't have a good job either.
Yeah, that's
and
a
my
brutal
mom
job.
was trying to open a business as a massage therapist and, esthetician. They were not in a good spot. We lived in an apartment, in like a 2-bedroom apartment. We didn't have money. And so for me to see my parents pony up that money for me to go, even when they were against it, it's a testament of how much they wanted to just be parents in the end.
Or their well-deserved money that should have gone somewhere else, like your education.
Yeah. Right. And then I go on a mission with that stigma that my parents, even though they're paying for my mission, I'm still feeling like they're under the influence of Satan. But in my
and they're supporting you.
and they're supporting me, and I go
But
thinking,
still telling you we don't want you to go.
no. And to the point where when I got to the MTC, I remember going to bed and looking at the roof and like, what am I doing? What is happening? Like, I'm about to do this for 2 years. I'm not a morning person. I don't study well. I don't read stuff. I read the Book of Mormon. It entered here and it dissipated here. I read the Preach My Gospel and Joseph Smith saw something and becomes great. It just literally, I'm doing all these things thinking that the Spirit is going to open my heart to knowledge and I'm going to become a spiritual giant. That never happened. I read things thinking that enlightenment will enter my life and I will become this great Mormon. I just wasn't quantifying because guess what? My internal me was still out there battling things. This is not you, Ben. This is not you. And I'm inserting information to the point where I felt so inadequate in the MTC. You have these missionaries come at you because they're trying to learn a language and trying to teach you the first lesson. And then I'm supposed to go out and do this to practice. And I couldn't even get past a few sentences. Like, what do I do now? I don't know what comes next. Oh yeah. And then I saw a pillar of light in his head. I never even memorized it. It was difficult.
The Joseph Smith story.
Yeah, I couldn't. It was just difficult. And
You did eventually, though.
oh, I did. And I became good at it. But yeah, it's just, I went on a mission unprepared. I was ill prepared. My friends left. I want to be.
Please tell them how you showed up at the MTC. Please.
Oh,
yes.
yeah.
This is the mission training center where you learn to become a missionary.
First of all, you flew there by yourself.
Yeah.
No family came to say goodbye.
No family came to say goodbye. I went to the airport. Actually, no, some of the Welland guys came to the airport to say goodbye to me.
Yeah.
I got up on the airplane with a suit. And while I'm in the plane, I take my suit off because I was overheating. And I put shorts and a T-shirt just because I was sweating.
You also had long hair.
And I also had long hair because I found out that at the NTC you get a haircut. So why would I pay for a haircut if I can just get it done there?
That makes total sense.
Yeah. Like, that's the thing, right? Like at this point, no one is telling me anything.
So you showed up at the MTC with long hair and
I showed up
shorts
at the
as a
MTC.
missionary?
They didn't know who he was.
No. And again, no one's coaching me to this. I show up at the MTC
I've never heard this, by the
with
way.
shorts and a T-shirt. My suit is on my suitcase. And I go into the front desk. Hi, I'm Ben Jalaff. I'm here to work as a missionary. And then they're looking at me like, are you an employee? Are you applying for a job? I think I'm applying for a 2-year job. I remember telling them that. It's a 2-year job, and I'm supposed to be here, and you guys are going to give me an ID. Not a name tag, an ID.
I love this story.
And the guy's like looking at me, and they make a few phone calls. And then somebody with a suit comes out. Who are you again? Oh, my name is Ben Jalaff. Here's my ID. And then they finally find my name tag. Son, where is your suit? Oh, it's in the backpack. It was hot on the plane. Like, and your hair, are you a missionary? I think so. They told me I will become a missionary the next day because my reporting date was the next day.
Had you been
You
set
were there
apart?
early.
What?
Were you set apart?
Yeah, they set me apart. I went to a party, right? I didn't know that when you get set apart, you're a missionary. No, I had
I think
a
you
party
went to the movies.
Yeah, I went to watch Transformers on a Sunday after being set apart. Yeah, I'm telling you, I didn't know what I was doing.
So you showed up a day early.
I showed up a day early. They gave me the name tag and put me in a room. And I remember the missionaries looking at me like, who are you? Oh, nice to meet you. I'm Ben. I'm not even referring myself as elder yet. I'm Ben, and I sleep on the floor.
Sorry.
Because they put me in a room with no bed. And I showed up early. I thought they were ill prepared. And again, you bring out the $1 billion church and they didn't even have a bed for me when I showed up.
Well, no, because you weren't supposed to come.
Yeah,
Until...
but I show up in there.
They could find a bed.
I think they could find a bed.
I don't know. It just,
he got grouped in with some people and there wasn't a bed.
yeah, they were all, because I mean, I guess my companion wasn't, I don't know what it was, but the next day they got me and got a haircut and they gave me a lecture. They're like, hey, you're a missionary of the Lord. I remember that talk. You're a missionary of the Lord. And what you did yesterday is a little irresponsible, right? And then they taught me about first impressions, because that's what you learn in the MTC. First impressions are important. Well, I certainly screwed the pooch on that one. You know, but I remember going to bed like, I don't know anything. What am I going to teach the people in Alberta about this? Like, I don't know anything.
So you got called to Alberta, even though
Alberta,
you're from
Yeah.
Ontario. Mm-hmm. So still a Canadian mission.
Yeah, it was a Canadian mission, yeah.
Wow, what a way to start your MTC.
Yeah, it was-
But you don't know any different. So
No one taught me anything.
Yeah.
Nobody told me
But
when you
he
get set
was-
apart.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
He was there with Welland friends. with some of the Welland guys.
Yeah, I met some of
they
the
were in
Welland
the
guys there.
MTC with him.
Yeah.
Okay, so you could,
Yeah.
play basketball or eat lunch sometimes.
Play basketball? No.
But like eat lunch with
with my friends.
with
and
your
stuff,
friends
yeah.
from the stake and some from London.
Yeah.
That must have been nice to have familiar faces.
Oh,
in
it
the MTC,
was.
yeah.
As soon as I saw my friend in the MTC, I'm like, okay, get familiar faces.
And you were also serving with one of the Welland guys in Calgary.
Yeah.
Same mission.
My friend Jonathan
Oh,
Medlin
wow.
went to Calgary with me, which he'll come out of my story like a flaming sore. But yeah, like I saw him on my mission. But yeah, that's the beginning.
So how'd you like the MTC?
Oh, I
Overall.
didn't. No, no.
You were only 3 weeks, right? Because
3 weeks, yeah. I did not like it at all. I didn't see the point. I'm like, look, whatever I'm learning here is better for me to be out there and do it physically because that's how I learn better. We will have these lessons with teachers. It just didn't click with me at all.
Did Utah feel weird? Did the United States feel weird?
Yeah, it was the first time I'm in the States. I was a year into my citizenship in Canada, so it was my first time in Utah, my first time in the MTC, experiencing all that culture. To be honest, I was so nervous about serving, it didn't really sink into me that I was doing that and experiencing all these things in the United States. No, I just remember just being in this big school, college thing, and I was with a bunch of people, and I was supposed to train for 3 weeks. But no, I didn't like it at all.
How'd you like the temple taking out your endowments for the first time?
Oh, no, yeah. Ill prepare.
Why are you laughing, Justine?
Ben's so funny to me. But it's his reaction was, sorry. just
We
let me do
had
it.
temple prep classes in London, and they didn't prepare me for the temple. Those lessons, they didn't do anything. I go to the temple, and all of a sudden I'm doing all these things. And in my head, I'm like, what am I doing? I got this man giving me a robe and blessing me. They're washing. And then
The
I'm
washings
going,
and anointings,
yeah. And then after that, I'm starting to do all these things in the temple, and that's the first time that my true self sat there and I'm like, what the hell are you doing here?
Yeah.
And again, they tell you, you're making promises and stuff. And my truth, what promises am I making? What's going on here? Am I putting myself in this position? And I got friends that came with me. I was just confused, doing all the signals, all the things. I never really memorized anything, and they're telling me what to do. And I go into the celestial room. People are crying in this room that looks like a hotel lobby. I'm sorry. People see the celestial room to be pretty. I just felt it's a high-priced hotel
I
lobby.
always thought it was beautiful.
I just thought it was a high-priced.
a very white
I loved
Yeah.
the chandeliers.
hotel lobby.
And I will sit there, and my friend comes to me in tears. How was it? Man, you know what? I flat out told him, hey, let's not talk about this because I don't understand it, and I'm not sure how to grasp in my brain that what I did is not something more than just something else. I almost used cult inside the temple because I just...
So that word cult came to your mind?
yeah, 100%. I'm sitting there like, how did I not think this is a cult? We're doing this. We're doing these signals. I walk out, and I'm just sitting there like, whoa. That was not on temple prep. That was not on temple prep. And they come at me and they tell me, oh, you just got to constantly go. I'm like, are you
That's
kidding me?
right.
Wait, what?
You
I told
also
them,
had really good friends with you who were like, oh, yeah, I know it's weird, but it gets better. And
I told them in the celestial room, I'm a loud guy. And I remember they told me to shoot because he told me like, oh, you just got to keep coming. Are you kidding me? I'm not that stupid. I did that at the temple thing just because I'm not that stupid. I don't need to go a bunch of times to understand it's weird.
yet you did. You did go back.
Yeah, and I went back, obviously I did, but it's just to me, no, temple wasn't good. I went home, and again, my parents being loving parents. I go home with my endowments, and my dad's like, hey, how was it? I don't know. Like, I'm telling you, are you sure about this? Like, my parents are using every scenario to like, please, son, don't go.
Yeah.
But they didn't breach. I just told them it was weird, and they didn't even bother going there. Like, whatever. Yeah, temple wasn't good.
Yeah.
And I remember going on my mission again as a missionary and still feel like this is odd. And I got my name tag. I'm set apart and still felt the same way.
What year did you start your mission?
2007.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, so the MTC's over, and what was your mission like overall? Any important stories?
Yeah, I'll be brief here so we can move forward. But I went on a mission, and my first area was Lethbridge. And
which is super Mormon.
Oh,
right? It's like Mormon. It's
Very
like
Mormon.
Utah, Canada, basically.
You were Spanish speaking.
No, not in Lethbridge. Not in the beginning. In the
eventually.
beginning, I was English speaking.
Now, tell me if I'm right, but wasn't Lethbridge colonized by Utah Mormon polygamists?
Yep.
They wanted to keep practicing polygamy.
Yeah, they went to Karsten and they bled over to Raymond and then over to Lethbridge. Yeah.
So Mormon prophets sent Utah Mormons to southern Canada in southern Alberta so they could keep practicing polygamy.
Yep.
Yeah, and that's why Alberta has such a big Mormon population.
Yeah.
And
So
it's the Canadian BYU.
So southern Alberta and northern Mexico, like Hermosillo, Sonora area, Chihuahua, those are two huge Mormon polygamous colonies that our church started in the late 1800s, early 1900s.
Yeah, and I went to Lethbridge. That was my first area. I had a great trainer. I respect him. He really took his time with me because I told him when I met him, like, hey, look, man, I don't know anything. I'm just going to have to go to lessons. You do your thing, and eventually I'll catch up to it. I flat out told him the truth. I don't know anything. And
what percentage of Lethbridge was Mormon, do you think?
I probably will say about like at least 60% of people.
That's a lot
It's
for
in the
Canada,
west side.
right?
The west side of Lethbridge was all Mormon.
Yeah.
Well, Cardston is all Mormon.
Yeah, Carson's all Mormon.
And there's a Mormon temple there. One of the first Mormon temples ever built was in Cardston, Canada, right? Yeah.
And 3 weeks into my mission, I went on exchanges with the zone leaders. And that was the first time we're walking. And this dude shows up from nowhere. And he starts telling us, your golden Bible this, your golden Bible that. Your prophet translated using a magic rock and translated the Book of Mormon using that magic rock. And I'm like, okay, that's funny. Sounded funny. My companion at the time, who was a zone leader, like, because we're on exchanges, he thought it was hilarious. Story short, it became, within our zone, it became a funny story of the guy with the crazy rock and the story. And I'm looking at the reactions of those guys, and they certainly looked like they didn't know anything about it. Because I remember like a rock, a magic rock. I'm picturing Joseph, man, I got the flipperama with Joseph translating the Book of Mormon with his finger. So I didn't quantify that. That's the first thing, which will come up a lot later.
So can I just mention the South Park episode that accurately depicted Joseph Smith looking at the stone in the hat?
Yeah.
That came out in 2003. I just Googled it.
Yeah.
So about 4 years before your mission starts.
He said South Park. He said he watched it, which made the story even funnier because I knew what South Park. I watched it as a Mormon.
I had seen that episode as a teenager.
I had no boundaries of what I watched when I was active Mormon. I watched South Park, but I never watched that episode for some reason.
Because it was anti-Mormon.
But it was one of those things that I laughed hysterically because I thought it was crazy.
But actually, they got the Book of Mormon translation. South Park got the Book of Mormon translation right when the church had inappropriately mistaught that translation for over 150 years.
I remember I was just like
members.
switching through the cable channels, and South Park was like this cartoon I knew was inappropriate, but was also kind of funny. And so I ended up watching this episode that was about the Mormons, and it was the Rock and a Hat episode. And I remember distinctly saying out loud in anger, oh, they're just mocking us. They're just making fun of us. This is just anti-Mormon.
But also making stuff up. Because none
I
of
was
us
like,
had been
no,
taught.
they're just making that up.
Yeah.
Because I had never been taught that. There is something about Ben's mission I do want to touch on. He's making it sound like he went out there and he didn't know anything. There's a point where he did become committed.
Oh, that comes in a second here.
Oh, you're going to get there?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, no,
and he
it's
does
fine.
become like a really good missionary.
Yeah.
I heard that. That's the first strike.
So this anti-Mormon comes up, makes fun of the stone in the hat, and you conclude that he's lying.
That he's just crazy.
Okay.
And then the next thing, this did something, and I'm not going to share too much of it because of privacy, but I went to my third area, and I met a homosexual person that we were teaching. Again, this is me being ill-prepared about policies. I don't know anything. We're teaching this guy. And I don't know where after we're done the lessons, he has to have a special interview with the district leader. And the meeting takes forever. And this has never happened with my investigators. They usually get an interview and they're done. About an hour later, he comes out and he says, oh, he needs to meet with the mission president. Well, why? Oh, yeah, because he's an homosexual. I'm like, okay, what does that mean? oh, family proclamation, homosexuality can happen. Well, where does it say that? And then they pull out the proclamation and show it to me. And again, quantify like here, and it dissipates in my ear. I'm not understanding this. I thought God opened his door to come in. The more, the better. But now you're telling me he can join because he's gay?
Yeah.
I'm not processing that.
Yeah.
And he goes and has an interview with the mission president. He comes out, and I find out, oh yeah, he's going to be baptized because he had agreed to not practice homosexuality. When he said that, I'm a junior companion, so I got no pull. But my subconsciousness, which the church taught me was Satan, is telling me, well, Ben, you need to say something to him. Like, tell him not to join. I went to bed, tell him not to join, Ben. Tell him not to join. Tell him not to join.
Because
Wow.
Because I didn't agree. Like, you're telling a person not to love. You're telling a person not to be gay? How do you do this? It's like you're telling me you're not allowed to date. Wait, what? Like, to me, it's just like, no, this doesn't feel right. It feels off. Intuition telling me, I'm a junior companion. That ended in tragedy later. I'm not going to say what happened, but I went to my father a few months back because I told my dad, like, it's when my anger got really bad. I almost drove to the chapel in London, like, because I had a rock in my hand, like, I'm going to throw this at it when I found out. Like, my intuition told me no.
What happened to that man?
I'm not saying it.
No, I mean, but that's why you were angry.
But yeah, I was angry. I just...
And that man did end up getting baptized and joining the church.
My intuition told me to say no to him. And I didn't follow it. And don't fucking tell me that was Satan. That was me telling me, Ben, say something, man. And I didn't man up. To this day, and Justine tells me I have to heal, but to this day, I just did not follow my intuition, and it cost somebody. This is why Margie and John, sometimes I sit and just like, no. That was a big one on my mission. Yeah. That was a big one. That shook me. What that had done, though, is awoke the other Ben again.
Yeah.
Now you have Mormon Ben, who's a missionary, but now you have Ben, who is trying to lead me like with your brain. Then the numbers came up. Oh, you had to focus on the numbers and stuff, and that's where things went sour with me and the mission.
Meaning your mission president was baptism focused.
Yeah, like he wanted me to extend baptismal dates the first time I met someone.
Like to invite investigators to get baptized the day you meet them.
Yeah, how do I do this? Do I like, hey, nice to meet you. My name is Elder Jalaff. This is Elder so-and-so. Hey, we have baptismal fun, Phil, for next week if you want to do this.
No, that's a real thing.
Like, how do I do this? Like, so I never did it. And I will get in trouble so many times with the phone calls from the soul leaders. Elder Jalaff, how many lessons do you teach? Well, if you want me to give you the bullcrap answer, I probably taught 20. But realistically, I would probably say 2 or 3. And they had just given up because I could not stand for this. This sounds false. Quality over quantity was my thing. If I'm baptizing people, I want quality people that will stay, not quantity. Hey, I'm going to baptize hundreds. How many of those are going to stay active? That's how I thought. And it just became this wrestling thing with me and leadership. And I believe to this day, that's the reason why I never became a district leader or a zone leader. Wow. Because I was a no person.
He would get in fights with his mission president.
I got into fights with him, arguments,
Over what?
He was just trying to tell me that this is how I need to do it. I remember one day I told him like, hey man, if I'm paying you 10 grand to be here, you can send me home, but I like to think I've been out for 10 months? That's half of what I paid to be here. So do I get that money back? Just because that's how I'm thinking now, like, I'm trying to be the best I can be. You're telling me to do something that goes against my nature. I don't want to do this number thing because I feel like it's not right.
Yeah. And what happened as a result of that? You not following the numbers and not extending the baptism and actually getting to know people and becoming people's friends. Like, what happened?
I don't think I want to brag about this because
I think you should.
I look at it differently now, but I had a lot of success as a missionary.
You had a lot of baptisms.
And I did that on my own. I did that without a sales pitch. I will sit like I'm sitting with you guys and I'm getting to know you first. Like you did. Hey, Ben, you're a Blue Jays fan. Yeah, I will look at things I can talk to people about. Oh, you're a Calgary Flames fan. Hey, this player's not performing well. And I'm starting talking to them so I can open a path of friendship. Because to me, I'm looking at it, I need you to trust me. Because I'm going to tell you a fantastical story. I like you to believe me. But some missionaries will do the sales pitch. And to me, it just felt like it's not genuine. And I was getting results by just doing my own thing. And I had to bring it out to the zone leaders a bunch of times. They will do the numbers thing, and I will ask, how many baptisms do you have, Elder? This. Well, I got this many. Tell me which pitch works best. Just because I was so angry that you're telling me something that is failing you already. My method is working. I don't understand this. And I love my mission, but I love my mission because I feel like I connected with myself.
Yeah, it kind of awakened you.
It really did. Because I felt like I could do this different. It's one of those things that you start thinking I can change things.
Yeah.
I can definitely make changes here.
Yeah.
It does surprise me a little bit that you never made district or zone leader if your baptism numbers were high, because I would think that that would be the number your mission president would care the most about. But the truth is, I know better. The most important thing in Mormonism is obedience to authority.
Yeah, no.
And you weren't being obedient
He's
to
not
authority.
a yes man, and
No.
he's never been a yes man.
No,
and that will play in callings further down the line.
I wasn't disobedient. I followed the rules. I was a hard worker, but I didn't. If it didn't feel right, and again, it's like what we're discussing is my true self came out and like, hey, this doesn't make sense, so I'm not going to do it. He led my mission, and I am glad that person led me because I felt like, hey, it's giving me success. It's working, you know? And yeah, but I never made leadership. I was made trainer. That's as far as I went.
Unbelievable.
I didn't, and to me, I'm a prideful person a little bit. I wanted those things. I wanted to be a district leader, and I wanted to be a zone leader because I feel like it's validation of my hard work. If you're at a job, you're not going to be working as a lower tier worker until you retire. You want to keep climbing the ladder. Otherwise, you got no ambition. In Mormonism, I had some level of ambition. Like, if I go on a mission, I want to climb that ladder so that I can go home and tell people, like, oh, yeah, I went here and I went here, because I'm looking at value. I'm looking at what it might do to me when I come home, you know? But I didn't feel like I was valuing the mission. It just hit a wall, and that was it. Because I wasn't a yes man. It hurt. It hurt me. It hurt my pride.
Yeah.
It really did.
But it also started waking you up.
It did because...
Well, it indoctrinated him and woke him up at the same time.
Yeah, it created this balance that will essentially begin my faith crisis during my mission. And we're not talking about me getting into truth claims on my mission, but it started something.
I think it was like, this is how I'm going to be me in Mormonism.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to keep being me.
Yeah.
Which is ultimately dangerous to a Mormon testimony, to start listening to yourself over the external direction.
Yeah.
Having an existence of a self that's not fully merged with the Mormon identity that Mormonism creates is a threat long term.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else from your mission you want to share?
In the best way.
My exit interview messed me up pretty bad. And it goes back to what my parents said. When my parents told me, hey, you're going to miss college and all that stuff. Yeah, I went on a mission, and at the end of my mission, I didn't know what I was doing. Like, I'm about to leave. I'm about to go home. Oh, keep in mind that I have not written my parents. I stopped writing them, which I got in trouble with my mission president about it because, again, my parents not having any value to me. They're inactive. My exit interview goes back to what my parents said of being ill-prepared about college and all that. I sit with my mission president, who was a guy that just came into the mission. Like, he was 2 weeks fresh as a mission president, so I didn't connect with him. And he asked me, Elder Jalaff, what are you going to do when you go home? And I was honest with him. I don't know. Find a job, maybe go to college. I have no idea what I'm doing. I just got to figure myself out. And he stopped me and he said, wait a second, you're missing the whole point, and goes on this rant about eternal marriage. I have to go home and I need to find a wife and I need to get married right away.
Mormon wife.
And story short, he sent me home with, I got no tools. You know, 2 mission is a 2-year mission, and you come home and you're already feeling displaced for a good while. And I'm supposed to find an eternal companion right when I step off the plane. It just set me into a path that we'll discuss that when it comes up, but it started my Mormonism got really bad after I came home from a mission. It just did not do me any favors.
Your Mormonism got bad?
Yeah, you think you come home after the mission and you'll be this powerful person to share. And I come home to parents that are not active. Most of my friends are still serving from Welland and they're slowly coming home. But then now I'm supposed to, again, it brings it to the Hunger Games. My friends are coming home. I'm home. And the next step is marriage in a very small bubble with very limited options.
Right.
How does that tie to the Hunger Games? I want to make sure I understand that.
Well, you have all my friends coming home and they all have the same mentality. They got to find a future wife. Very limited options with the girls that are available in London and in the stake. And I felt like, again, competing.
Oh.
And now I'm not
Totally
competing
makes
for a
sense.
girl. I'm competing against my own friend.
That's right.
You're also competing for your eternal life.
And exactly. So now
You gotta find the Mormon girl.
And I would imagine there's like that leftover feeling from like feeling not chosen also.
Yeah.
So you're like, I have a sense for how hard this could be. He's making it seem like a very simple thing. Go home, get married. But remembering that for you, this is not an easy.
Like he couldn't even date as a teenager in Mormonism.
That's right.
How's he supposed to come home and get married in Mormonism?
How is that something that you feel like you can control?
it was terrible. I come home, and again, I want to say this because I know my friends are watching this. And like I told you in the very beginning, I'm not holding back. But what that did was set me up in a path of any girl that I would see. Oh, I wonder if I could marry her. Every girl, I want to marry her. Oh, she's good. She's valuable. I was just so...
Yes,
focused. My friends sometimes will make fun of it.
And there is a level of like desperation.
I look desperate, and my friends will look at that desperation and sometimes make fun of it, not in a malicious way, but I'm looking at it now like, yeah, it was very, very harmful.
That's right.
To be that way and to feel like you're acting desperate in the eyes of so many people. It just became this thing where like, why am I not good enough? I just did this for 2 years. And you learn as a missionary, the better you are, the more focused you are and more results you have, you find these results at home, and I'm not seeing any.
Yeah, you'll get blessed from your mission by finding an eternal companion.
Yeah, that's the transactional kind of nature of you give this, you get that.
Yeah.
You give this, you get that.
In fact, it's
oftentimes
a joke.
it fails.
Yeah, it's a joke. Elders and sisters will tell each other, the better missionary I am, the hotter my future wife or husband will be, right?
Well, that paid off at the end with her. Awesome. But at that time, it just certainly didn't feel that way.
Yeah.
I had not had a girl tell me that I am good looking. I had not a girl just tell me these things that will bring me joy. I'm chasing this girl from my mission that I met, a sister missionary, just because in my mind as well, I'm thinking, if I date a girl like her, my eternity is secure. So I'm also have a list now in my mind of what I want, because I feel like if I'm going to find an eternal companion, she has to be a good mom, a good wife. She served a mission, so that's plus on my book. But not even thinking, am I even attracted to this girl physically? Or am I just seeing the eye of the beholder? I think, she's a good member.
checklist.
I'm good.
Right.
And not even thinking, am I clicking with this girl? It's just some of those things. Again, when I came home from my mission, I will look at it as like, yeah, things were starting to crumble very, very, very fast then.
Yeah.
Okay. It sounds like you had a great mission in terms of baptisms, but you didn't come home feeling like you had a successful mission.
No,
did you?
because they're promising me that my success will bring me blessings. I'm certainly not seeing any. When I came home, my parents are inactive. They still look like the enemy to me. I'm not clicking in with my own parents, you know, and I'm not seeing the Mormon success right away. You know, I'm coming home, and my friends are coming home, and they've started dating right away. They're seeing the success, and I'm still not experiencing that.
They're also dating girls that you liked.
And I'm also, yeah,
But you
exactly.
just took a step back because they went and said they like her. So
Whenever I like a girl, I'll stay away because he's a friend of mine, and I don't want to ruffle the feathers. And again, it's just, I just wasn't seeing them. Like, all this hard work, what's going on here? Like, I'm not feeling the blessings coming. I still don't have a career. I don't have a pull for my parents' words as prophetic. I came home, I don't know what I'm doing. And my friends from school who were perceived the danger were moving on with careers because they went to college, they got ahead of the game. And here I am, I'm like, feel like I'm way behind the ball here.
Got it.
That totally makes sense.
Should we do your mission now, Justine? Real quick?
do you have time?
Yeah, just real quick. I mean, just the important points, you know? Because you would have gone after he come home, or would you have left while he
So
was
Ben
out?
came home from his mission, and I was in school for Alberta, and then I came back to Ontario for about a month waiting for my visa to go to the States for my mission. So we hung out in between that time as friends.
Okay.
And then I went off on my mission.
And where were you called to?
Washington, Everett.
So Washington State.
Yeah, the Everett mission. Yeah.
And how would you summarize your MTC/mission experience?
So I was so green, and I just wanted to be so good. And I always thought I was going to serve a mission. I was told that my baby blessing said I was going to serve a mission. I had spiritual experiences where I felt I was called to serve. Those who have a desire are called to the work. I felt like I had a desire. I felt like I was called to the work. I had an older sister who served in Denmark, and she's 12 years older than me, and I constantly heard her success stories as a 10-year-old. And so I thought I would have that too. And so I just went out ready to change the world and spread the gospel. And that did not happen for me.
No.
No, and my mission was very number focused, which put so much pressure on me because I just wanted to I've always wanted to do what they asked me to do. That was my definition of being good. And they were asking me to follow these numbers, but I didn't agree with the numbers, and they were making me feel so much stress and pressure. And they were making me feel like shit. Like I felt like I suck because they call it the godless North, like
Call what the godless North?
Washington State.
Oh.
Yeah.
On my mission, they called it the godless
I can
North
see that.
Why?
because people didn't believe in God and people didn't want to join the church.
Yeah.
Just secular?
More secular.
That I don't know. That's just what they said on my mission. And so I just and also sister missionaries, we always got vehicles. And we were not put in urban communities. We were put in rural communities. So we were literally put in these small, spaced out towns that had very low baptizing success. And so I had like my district leaders who were in Everett, who were baptizing like crazy because, they're in the city. And then here I am just slaving away, not baptizing, not finding people to teach, putting myself down. And then our mission had a standard that you had to meet every month of numbers. And if you didn't meet that, you just felt like a failure. And I remember my one, and then a big thing on my mission was also send out the baptism invitation the first time you have a lesson. That was like drilled because my trainer and I went to a training conference for all the people being trained and their trainers. And our mission president literally sat everyone down and chastised everyone for not doing it. So that was like my introduction to the mission. But I didn't agree with it. I didn't understand it. I was like, how can I extend the baptismal invitation? They don't even know what that is. I don't understand this. I don't understand the numbers. I don't understand this pressure. I thought I was just going to go love and serve people and spread the gospel. Why is this happening? And why do I feel so unhappy? And then we got a new mission president. And I remember telling my companion, I think this one's going to be all about love. I just have this feeling he's going to be all about love. And he comes in, and of course he does. He gives a talk about charity and love. And then he gets rid of the mission standards. He makes them blank. He gives us like a plastic paper copy that's blank. And you just fill it in on your own. And I was like, oh my goodness. Yes, finally. And then an area authority came in like a month later and told him he had to put it back. And I was like, oh, okay.
He was trying to have missionaries be more self-driven.
Yeah, and just like make their own goals that were according to their area. And he understood that the standard didn't work for all the areas.
When you say standard, do you mean like the numbers?
The numbers, baptism, lessons, invitations.
So there was like every area had a quantity.
The whole mission as a whole had a standard. Which was the same numbers.
What were those numbers?
I can't remember. I think it was like one baptism a month, certain amount of lessons, certain amount of invitations.
So X number of lessons a week, X number of invitations to baptism a week.
Yeah, and it was
X number of baptisms a month. And yeah, areas can vary wildly.
Yeah.
If you're in an area with people of lower socioeconomic status, maybe who are immigrants, you could baptize many in a month, or you could be in a more affluent area with more educated people who you'd be lucky to get one.
So the sister missionaries were put in the more affluent areas.
Because they'd be, quote, safer, maybe.
They'd be safer, and the elders were put in the more non-safe areas, and they had the higher baptisms.
Yeah, which made you feel bad.
Made me feel bad.
But they had the same standards.
But we all had the same standards that we had to meet.
But then when your your new mission president tried to allow you to set goals based on your area.
And according to your heart.
And your understanding of your local situation.
And what you personally think you could achieve.
Then the area authority came in and
changed them all back. Said, no, you have to have this.
Wow, that's crazy.
And I was like, what?
Okay.
Felt like whiplash. And so I really, really struggled with that. And so eventually I got to the end of my mission and I told myself, you know what? There's only so much I can control. I can control if I talk to everyone I see. I can control if I smile at people. I can control how I serve and how I talk to people and how I teach the lessons. And so at the end of my mission, I was like, I can't live like this anymore. And I told myself, it's between me and God, and He knows how hard I've worked and that He can be proud of me at the end of every single day. And I had to tell myself that over and over and over again so that I wouldn't fall into a state of depression. That God is proud of me. He loves me. And no, I am a really good missionary. Even if I don't have the numbers. Even if I don't have the baptisms. Even if I'm not having the success that I was taught and thought I was destined to have. So I would say I also saw my mission as an erasure of myself. Because I just wanted to be obedient. Obedient was drilled into us. Exact obedience will get you the blessings. Exact obedience will get you the baptisms. And I'm like, well, I'm being so obedient to the point where I'm exercising in the morning and I feel like a crippled old lady walking up this hill trying to get exercise because I'm so physically spent. I worked myself to the ground, physically, mentally, emotionally. And I came home and I didn't even know who I was anymore. And that brings us to when we started dating.
I think that's so interesting because in a way then you both hit up against the rigidity of the system on your missions in different ways. But you both did. You both worked very hard. You both gave it your all. You both really, really engaged with that process and walked away feeling like, wow, I totally fit. I was not valued. And
there's nothing wrong with seeking a payoff.
Wanting the validation. When you sacrifice so much.
Am I wrong here to think like, hey, where's my cheese? Yeah, I mean, come on. Like, this is a 2-year mission. Just give me something.
10 grand's a lot.
Exactly. So
in 2 years, 10 grand in 2 years.
And then you mentioned like the church with all this money. We're going out there with all money. Well, actually, my parents' money,
and yours.
And to me, it's just like, where's my payoff here? It's not like I'm going the deep end to be completely a terrible missionary. I work hard. Just give me something. Mm-hmm. Give me value. Give me a district leader calling just to appease Elder Jalaff because he's doing something. It's just he never gave me that. Am I wrong to think that? Like, why am I so wrong to seek for this? Because this is what actually started to drive me away from the church is that how much can I do for you? You're not doing anything back for me.
Yeah, that's right.
You're just making me feel like shit. Mm-hmm. So, oh man, I'm getting there again.
That's part of our deconstruction, so we'll get there.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, Maven just sent us the note that we're promised the Lord is bound when you do what he says.
Yes.
In other words, we're promised some reciprocal blessings.
That's right. Oh, yeah. It would be different if from the beginning they never offered. They didn't promise. So it was like informed consent. You're going to go on a mission. You'll work hard. You're probably not going to get a lot. You're not going to. That's different. But you are promised things. Yeah. You are promised things that you want, like really badly. And so it's kind of what happens when the process, I think, breaks down so that there's nothing there for you to connect to that keeps you going. And then even after, when you get home, you're kind of like, yeah, I'm not seeing any of those promises you promised coming true.
Although you both got your eternal companions. So you did get the promise. Yes. So how did y'all end up getting married? I want to hear that story.
So it begins with me coming home from my mission. And a bit of a funny story, my sister, so they came and they picked me up in Buffalo Airport to go across to Niagara Falls. And on the way, while we were crossing the border, my sister's like, Ben just keeps calling the house. And I keep telling him, you're not home from your mission and you're not even released yet. And I was like, oh, Ben is around.
Did y'all write?
Yeah.
Just once. I wrote her once.
He wrote me once when he was in Alberta and I was in Edmonton for school.
Okay.
And then I wrote him while I was on my mission. I did. Yeah. A couple times.
That was something I'll tell you in a bit here. I got that letter when I was dating a girl at the time. And
who was not a member. Yeah.
Who was not a member. And I got so excited about the letter with Justine that I didn't even notice that she had gotten upset and left the house. Because here I am having mail from Justine. And like, oh man,
the girl you were dating saw you reading a letter from Justine.
Yeah, I must have said unconsciously to her, "This is my first love."
Oh,
and I wasn't thinking. It's just I got a letter from her, and it just whoa.
Yeah, there's something in me that wanted to write to Ben. We were friends, so.
All right.
Yeah,
I actually kind of love that for your love story, your life story, that it started with friendship, because what we're learning about how relationships work longevity-wise is that the friendship piece oftentimes is the stabilizer for the relationship over the long term.
We had the friendship piece. We had the youth memories together with the same group of friends. We knew each other. We knew each other's families. Yeah. And so I come home from my mission. And I really struggled because the day I came home from my mission, my grandma passed away. Like, my mom literally came from my grandma's deathbed to come pick me up after watching her mom die. She came and picked me up at the airport. So I came home to my grandma's funeral, and that did not help me in navigating coming back to real life. It kind of put me in this state of, I can't say depression, but a state of dismotivation and feeling unhappy. And I didn't really know what was going on with me. And then Ben called and he was in Utah at the time selling pest control. So he called from Utah to talk to me, and talking to him felt like I was seen for the very first time. Like, this guy sees me somehow through the phone by what he's telling me. He was basically validating me and telling me everything I couldn't. He's very good with words, so he was putting into words everything my heart was feeling and thinking that I could not put into words. And I was just like on this phone call, like, yes, exactly, yes, yes, and that was the first time I felt like I was coming back into myself. Was having that phone call with Ben. Yeah.
Wow.
It's meaningful.
Yeah. That mentality, like, oh, she's coming home. I got to jump this very quickly here.
Even though you were in Utah.
Even though I was in Utah. But again, the reason why I was in Utah to sell pest control was because I'm also trying to date someone, because I kind of given up in Ontario and I got this opportunity to come to Utah. I'm like, oh, there are a lot of girls there. So I'm going to go there and do that. But when she came home and I talked to her on the phone for 3 hours, it's just something in my brain clicked, like, oh man, I got to get out of here. And I remember I told my boss at the time, like, hey, there's this girl at home, and he asked me to go to the temple to pray about it. And
Your boss did?
Yeah, because it's called Sage Pest Control, and he was a member of the church, and he ran it, and he got a bunch of missionaries in Utah, and those missionaries knew me, and they thought, oh man, Jalaff had a lot of success in the mission. He'll be good at selling this. And I showed up in here to do that. But when I talked to her, it derailed everything. And then I go and tell my boss, oh yeah, go to the temple and pray about it. And I went to the temple, like, hey, can I go home, God? And I just right away, yeah. Oh, I wasn't thinking. And then I went.
Well, at the time, he framed it as a very big spiritual experience. But he really just wanted to come back.
I just wanted to come home. I thought that, you know what? This is a great opportunity. She just came home from a mission. I just talked to her on the phone for 3 hours, and it felt like for the first time, me and Justine had talked, and it felt good. It didn't feel odd. I didn't feel
awkward.
I felt great.
And Justine, what made you open to liking Ben?
So I did not like him at that time.
Okay.
We were friends.
Yeah.
And then we talked again. Oh, I called him while he was in Utah, crying. And he took that as a sign that I liked him. So he flew back from Utah to date me, and to ask me out on a date. And to make a story short, because it's a bit of a long story, we did end up going out on a date. And I actually had my eye on someone in Alberta. So I wasn't planning on living in Ontario. I had 1 year left in my degree. I was only going to be in Ontario for 3 weeks, and I was going to move back to Alberta. And I was going to go see what would happen with this guy in Alberta. And then here comes Ben calling me at like midnight, telling me he's home and asking me, please, can we go on a date? And I remember getting off the phone and waking my mom up at 1 a.m. and saying, should I go on a date with him? Like, I'm not even going to stick around. And she's like, just give him a chance. Yeah. So I did. Ben ended up, I don't know why this was our date, driving all the way from London to pick me up in Niagara Falls, to drive us all the way back to London to have our date. I think because you had to work that afternoon
I wasn't
or
thinking.
something.
I don't remember what it was.
And he planned this whole day in London. And what ended up happening was, like, I'm fresh from my mission. I don't know what I want, who I am. I think I'm going back to Alberta. I don't want anything to do with Ontario. Like, Alberta's the place to be. And here I have Ben, like, opening up to me on this date and basically, can I use the word beg?
Yep.
Yeah, basically begging me to give him a chance. And I'm sorry, I was a bit of a snob. Let's just admit it. Like, I thought I was better than Ben. And like, I'm just like, you know what? I'm just going to tell him that I'll give him a chance so he leaves me alone. So I told him, okay, yeah, like, definitely, like, if I come back from Alberta and nothing happens, I'll get like, yeah, definitely we can. And he's like, yes, I just need hope. I just needed hope. But then what ends up happening on the same date, like this is how contradictory I was. Like, I mean, literally rejecting him. And then the next moment we're watching a movie and I'm cuddling him. Like it was like my heart wanted one thing and my mind was telling me something else. Like my heart wanted to be, something in my heart was gravitating towards Ben, but my brain was telling me, no, you got to go to Alberta. No, you got to go this guy. Anyways, Ben ended up kissing me, a very innocent, sweet kiss, nothing more. And I said it was the best first kiss of my life. And after that moment, I was hooked.
Yeah.
Really?
Yes, hooked.
It worked.
I did it. Finally.
Louisa.
Yeah. That was a really weird date now that I think about it. Yeah, it's great. It's funny. To me, it's just like, that was a really weird date. It ended well, though.
But let's just get serious for a moment. You never should have had to beg.
Yeah.
That never should have happened.
That's
and
right.
I never should have been in a position where I thought, oh, I'll just give him a chance. That never should have happened.
Yeah.
It has been a funny story for so long. And since deconstructing, I'm like, no, that never should have happened.
Yeah. There's
What do you
some
think that was about?
sadness.
That was about him not fitting the mold. Him not having success dating in the Mormon bubble, him being so desperate that he felt like he had to fly back from Utah, give up money because he was making good money.
Yeah.
And so he quit midway to see if he could have a chance with this girl he's liked since he was 15 years old, who never gave him a chance. But because of that one phone call, he's going to fly back and see if he can make this work with the girl who fits everything, who's the RM Mormon girl from Ontario. And he never should have had to do that.
Yeah.
And how much of that, I don't want to interject this if it doesn't fit, but how much of that was about race, do you think? Or perceptions of
I don't
race?
I don't know if it was about race, but just about like perception, I'm going to marry an Alberta boy who's obviously white and going to be an engineer. And here I have Ben, who I know full well was a refugee to the country, who still doesn't even know what he's going to do for his education. Like he wasn't going to, like, I needed to marry someone who could provide, who could make good money if I needed to be a stay-at-home mom, right? I don't know if I was actually thinking that, but that's everything I internalized. Mm-hmm. But what ended up happening is that I ended up being with Ben because he made me feel like me. That's why I got hooked. Ben made me feel like me. He was the only person I felt comfortable around. He made me laugh. He made me feel beautiful. And I knew that he would always be loyal. For some reason at the time, his loyalty was very important to me. And so I was looking at him as he's going to be a companion. I wasn't looking at him as a provider or a priesthood holder, although he was a priesthood holder and he was an RM, but he also just made me feel like me.
Yeah.
When I had come from an experience that had erased me. I don't think Ben and I ever would have dated if I hadn't served a mission. I don't think it ever would have happened.
I think that's so interesting to kind of consider how your life sometimes lines up to provide circumstances that either, I don't know, bring certain things to the forefront of your mind as being important that maybe, and also here, like, I think it's important to acknowledge that you went off script from Mormonism in this way at this time.
Which would end up not working out later. Financially.
Yeah, maybe in some, but also like the things that you did prioritize, if we're going to look at relationships, like some of those things that make relationships work, that actually are valuable, you chose those things off script. Yeah. Where more and more you see when people stay on script and do it because he's a returned missionary and he's a strong priesthood leader and he'll be a strong provider. Like oftentimes they end up in divorce later.
Yeah. And I never thought he would never be a provider. I just said, I just need to help him be a provider because I've been Canadian my whole life and I have an education. So now I can help him do the same.
And Ben, how does it feel to be listening to all this?
He's heard it all before.
Well, one important thing now that we're on this topic really quick is honesty. You know, I listened to that story and back then it's like, oh, it's a great story. Justine is 100% right. I should have never begged. But the value I'm going to place myself right now is this. I never in my life, and I've been married to Justine for 13 years now. Okay? And I'm saying this with as polite as I could be to everybody that knows me. Nobody ever once told me that Justine was lucky she married me. It was always the other way around. That bothers me.
That everyone told you were lucky
Everybody.
that you got to marry Justine.
That I'm the lucky one. That really, right now, hurts my pride. And now that we're talking about honesty, that story, what Justine said, I should have never begged. No, I shouldn't have. I should have just go, hey, let's go out. Yes or no, and move on.
Yeah.
But instead, I am with the confidence of no one to just, if this doesn't work, I remember telling that in my head when I came home from Utah. If it doesn't work with Justine, I'm done.
Done with what?
With the church. I'm like, I'm done. I need a break. I can't do this.
Yeah.
I had dated a non-member before Justine. This story is crucial because this girl that I dated at the gym, I met her at the gym, remember seeing her, and for the first time in my life, I felt like my other person took over. Hey, Ben, she's good looking, isn't she? Go after her.
Was she Latina? Or?
No, she was just a girl in the gym that I thought was beautiful.
Yeah.
And I went home fighting my feelings. Should I talk to her? Should I talk to her? And then all of a sudden I felt like, oh yeah, let's talk to her. I went, story short, I ended up dating her. And this girl was the very first girl that told me for the first time, oh, I just think you're hot, Ben. Wait a minute, you think I'm good looking? Oh yeah, you're hot. Whoa, this is new territory to me. I haven't heard this before.
Yeah.
So now, guess what's happening here? Now there's value entering in my life now. Now I know I can get stuff done, you know? So what happens is in that moment, dating that non-member, I fell in power. While the whole entire Mormon world is messaging me, telling me to break up with her because she's dangerous.
Yeah.
Or inferior.
Or inferior.
Yeah.
And truth be told, this girl was the very first girl that made me feel like $1 million, and then yet it led to a scenario where my parents were leaving out of town. Again, my mom and dad, I cannot give them enough praise. They're leaving town and they know my girlfriend's coming over to hang out with me, and my dad comes to me and he puts a condom in my pocket. And then I tell my dad, what are you doing? Well, your girlfriend's coming. You want to be prepared. Dad, you know, law of chastity. Trust me, man, just keep it. And my dad leaves. Later that night, she wanted to have sex. And I panicked to the point of hyperventilating. Didn't happen. The next day she broke up with me. Why? Because in the Mormon world, they will tell you that, oh, good, that was Satan tempting me and I saved myself. But what about her? What about her giving that part, her vulnerability and just putting herself out there? What about her feelings? How does a woman feel to be rejected that way? Did I ever compute that? No. In Mormonism, I saved myself, and I never thought about her, how she felt.
From her perspective, saying no to sex was a rejection of her.
She told me that I'm breaking up with you because what I did was I opened myself to you, and you said no.
And you had been dating for a while.
And I've been dating for a while. I'm 23. I'm an adult.
She's probably the similar age.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that experience, because in my Mormon brain, well, if I do this, I'm not going to get married. And to this day, you know, I always thought that if I told Justine that I'd done some things with her, Justine wouldn't marry me. And again, with the honesty part, is that I got to give myself some value that I never felt in Mormonism. And to me, what hurt me the most is that to lead to eventually my exit later is that not feeling rewarded for anything I'm doing. And now Justine, she uses the word beg, and we talked about this. Can I use this word? And I told Justine, absolutely, because he highlights how I felt after I came home.
Yeah.
I was begging the whole time.
You were desperate.
I was begging.
Mm-hmm.
I'm remembering, whenever Book of Mormon racism comes up with modern Mormons, this idea that the Book of Mormon's racist because Lamanites were cursed with dark skin because of their wickedness. The common modern Mormon apologetic response is, the Book of Mormon isn't racist. It says in there that all are alike unto God, right? Bond and free, black and white, men and women, whatever. And your story is just reminding me that may be in the Book of Mormon, but that's not how Mormon culture works. Because an immigrant of color in Mormonism is not of equal status
No.
to multi-generational white
And
Mormons.
not in Ontario.
Yeah.
No.
And also, when I started deconstructing, it did hit me. I'm like, Ben experienced racism.
Yeah.
That was racism.
Mm-hmm.
And classism, right?
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
it was
both.
rigged. It was rigged against you from the beginning. You know, it's not like, because I think what happens is we're wired to think it was us. Like, what am I not doing? What am I not? At least for while we're in the conditioned state. You know, once it starts to fall apart.
I feel like
that's
when
true?
you said that, and for that to happen, certain things had to happen to unlock that part of my brain. What is the name of that bishop? He's the big guy. Man, I liked his episode. Nick.
The guy
Nick
from,
Jones
Nick,
Yeah.
Oh, the
the
interview
guy
with
that
Nick
resigned
and
from the
Amanda?
pulpit.
from Mississippi.
Yeah, I remember listening to him about how he wasn't able to tell what was dangerous at the time or not. And for me, I look at his story and like, oh my goodness, that's me. I wasn't able to really tell for the longest time whether I can be of value here until I finally sit with my thoughts and realize, what is happening? Why do I not feel validated or important in any scenario in this place?
Mm-hmm.
Because to me, on the outside, I feel like I could be of value. But whenever, and again, this comes back to that ex-girlfriend of mine. The whole Mormon world was decrying me to break up with her. When they didn't even know what I was feeling, I finally feel validated. Give me a break here. And then she breaks up with me and straight back to low confidence. But you know what got me to date Justine and call her a bunch of times? Was that ex-girlfriend. Wait a minute, I already done this. I think I could do it again. I think I could do this again.
So she helped you.
Yeah, she helped immensely.
Helped give you confidence that the church wouldn't give you.
It always
Yeah.
annoyed me when Ben would come home and he would hang out with his friends and he's like, oh, everyone just praises you so much, Justine. And everyone just tells me how lucky I am to be married to you. And I'd be like, it was not luck. You made it happen.
Yeah.
He's like, you made it happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the irony, the dark irony of your Mormon experience, Ben, is that the church saves you and your family, but then in a way kind of enslaves you to feeling less than and inferior.
Yeah.
And
So it comes at a
divides
cost.
and-
They save you, but it comes at a dark
Yeah, it did.
cost.
and divides your family.
Oh, it did. Since teenage years, my relationship with my parents had been shot. I mean, we're gonna get to this soon, but I had no parents, and I know they're watching this, but that's the whole truth. I had no parents because of how I was. My parents truly did try to steer me in the right direction. Damn it, I don't want to get emotional.
No, get emotional.
But my parents were the only people in my life that will try to bring me value. And I never listen to them because they're not going to church.
Yeah.
So I don't value their opinion because they don't have the light.
Yeah.
But they're the only ones. My dad sat me down And like, hey, you like Justine, but go get her. No, but what do I say? Stop, man. Go do it. He threw the keys of the car. Go get her now. Get it done. Like, he just literally desperately, like, son, you are more than this. You are more, man.
Yeah.
And they're crying to push me to see this.
Yeah.
Remember my dad telling me, what happened to that kid that just literally could just be so confident? That kid's been dead since Wellen. You know how much it hurts him as an adult, seeing their adult kid, their only son, just literally just not pulling his weight. And that comes down to the fact that even my friends would not even see the fact that, Ben, you are of importance. That's why Justine married you. But instead it was always reverted. And it always hurts. And I got to say this, people are watching this right now that know me, but it hurts. It hurt me. It hurt my confidence.
It put you down.
It put me down.
Yeah. Well, what a super powerful story so far. And I'm going to do something that's a little bit old school for Mormon Stories. I'm going to end this as part one of your story. We're going to take a little break, and then we're going to come back and do part two for lots of reasons. But I don't want this to be a 5-hour episode just because I know there'll be less people who watch it because it's so long. So what an amazing part one, Justine and Ben Jalaff, to your amazing Canadian, Venezuelan Mormon story. I'm so inspired. I'm so fascinated. I've been doing this for 20 years, and I've loved every minute of these 3.5 hours. Thank you for sharing part one of your amazing story. And we're going to come right back. We're going to come right back for part two. It'll be next in the sequence on the podcast, because we're going to talk about, they finally get their Mormon dream. They meet each other as eternal companions. They get their Mormon marriage. What happens next? That's going to be part two.
What could possibly go wrong? Or right?
Yeah, because you both find each other and you become your eternal companions. But there's more to the story. Is there more to the story?
Oh, yeah, so much more.
This is
so
funny.
It's a good thing you're doing a part two, because I was like, I'm pretty sure this is way more than 3 hours.
I feel bad. I feel bad because, like, oh man, how do we shorten this?
Good.
But
You take up
so
space.
good.
Your story's something.
Yeah, your both your stories are really powerful.
Thank you.
Thanks
you
for being vulnerable.
Here, both of you.
Thanks for being honest. And this has been beautiful. And I can't wait for part two.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Margie? You good?
I'm good.
All right. Thanks for joining us for part one of this epic Mormon story. Really quickly, thanks to all the donors who make this podcast possible. Please like and subscribe if you're watching on Spotify or YouTube or listening or whatever. Wherever you listen to or watch this episode, please like and subscribe. It really helps. Please comment. And then if you're a donor, please know that we're only able to make these episodes because of you. Ad revenue pales in comparison to just the monthly donors. So thanks for your donations. If you're not a donor, we would invite you to become donors if you value this type of content, because that's what makes this possible. Please make sure and check out part two. Email us at mormonstories@gmail.com if you have feedback. We love your comments, on YouTube or on Spotify or wherever. And also just know that just like Ben and Justine are on Mormon Stories, what they did is they went to mormonstories.org. They clicked on the apply button. They applied to be on the podcast. We fell in love with their video, and that's why they're here. And we can't accept every interview, but if you feel inside that you have a Mormon story to tell, the way you get on is if you apply and make that video, and often we can make that happen. So thanks for joining us. Thanks again to you both. Thanks to everyone who makes this possible. And come right back for part two of this amazing episode with Ben and Justine Jalaff. Thanks y'all. Thanks so much.